Hey guys, this is Caleb of Artful Fox Design. I'm a graphic designer and illustrator, so if you're in need of a podcast logo of your own or any other form of design work, get in touch. You can find me on Instagram at Artful Fox Design. To check out some of my work, visit www.artfulfoxdesign.com. If you like what you see and would like to work together, please let me know by emailing me at artfulfoxdesign@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Cheers!
Hello, and welcome to episode 125 of Flix and a Six. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo. With me forever and always, the man, the myth, the black hole, Alessandro Bielsi. Say hello, Al.
Best wishes, warmest regards.
Perfect. I'll heart you. And joining us for the first time on this week's episode, a constant weekly download, Mr. Caleb Kroemer. Say hello, Caleb.
Hello, I'm very happy to be here.
Oh my god. On this week's episode, I have a compelling would you rather proposition. Some shows leave us, and other shows may be overstaying their welcome, all before diving into our flick of the week, Interstellar. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
We're drinking Evil Twin Brewing, even more 8-pound, 6-ounce, newborn infant Jesus. I wish I could do a convincing bad southern accent, otherwise I would have done so. This is one
I wish we were
pint.
doing Talladega Nights.
What's up?
I wish we were just doing Talladega Nights.
Yeah, that would have been funny. This is 1 pint. It's a milk stout. I'm very disappointed with the beer named this, that there is no story for me to read.
I know, right? I guess it's all in the name.
Yeah, but still.
But unfortunately, with the way the world is right now, Caleb couldn't get the same beer. So what are you drinking?
So what I did is I live 15 minutes from Sloop Brewing. Haven't had a bad beer from them, and they're doing delivery during this crazy time. So I got my hands on a Sloop Brewing Super Soft New England IPA.
Nice.
Now,
nice date.
It's slightly topical. I did choose it because there are times in this movie when I feel super soft. And I don't mean... Nope, get your mind out of the gutter, Al.
I was going to say, like, flaccid, or...
It depends on the scene.
Well, it depends on the scene. No, but it's a powerful movie at times, I've found. That's why I like it. So,
one might say it has a certain gravity.
Yeah, and it's...
Different space movie.
I know none of the viewers can see this, but just for you guys, it's got a little teddy bear right on it.
No, this is live.
Perfect. We appreciate the can art on the show, even if the listeners can't see. I've recently been enjoying some Sloop beers. They're quite nice. Things that I hope don't go away. Beer delivery.
It's funny, I didn't even know that you knew about Sloop because, like, it's not that big of a brewery, and it is right over here, so...
Yeah, the first time I saw it was on a draft menu at some barbecue place that I went to in Long Island, and then all of a sudden it started showing up in the Whole Foods over here, so I was like, alright.
I'm guessing you've probably sneakily gone to the tap room there multiple times without me, even though it's right around the corner.
No, I have not. I have not done that. I only did that to you the one time. To be fair, I'm pretty sure I was still drunk from the entire weekend before.
Yeah, Caleb, we went upstate for Anthony's bachelor party, which we've talked about a few times on the show here.
Yep.
And we were coming back in separate cars. Me and Dominic were in a car. He was in a car with his brother-in-law and cousin-in-law. And they stopped at Newburgh Brewing and didn't invite me and Dominic. I was like, you realize that we live 15 minutes away and that we left from the same place, right?
It was on a whim. We were in Hitler's house.
Oh my god.
We were literally in Hitler's house.
I have heard that.
Al, shall we get this one to taste?
Sure. Sorry, I was doing a little editing here. Cheers.
Edit live? Editing the audio? Dangerous game you're playing, sir.
You were like saving and recording. Was that what was going on? Were you back to the thing where it was uploading live and like chewing up all your bandwidth?
No, it was just in the wrong folder. And I had there were 5 other recordings in there. Not 6, which is concerning because there's always 2 recording at the same time. So I must have lost something somewhere.
Nah, I was building out the image for the spin tune post of this episode.
Beautiful. This is pretty good. I vaguely remember it tasting better, but it's very old at this point.
Oh, so who's got the old beer this time?
I mean, both of us. I mean, it's very old because it's been in your fridge for a long time, too.
So it's Al's
This
fault.
is a back corner beer.
Erroneous on both accounts.
So a little stale, but decent. The name is better than the beer. Let's put that out there. That's how I feel about it.
It's good. The name is grade A. It's very dry. Drier than most stouts, I guess, that I've had. And it's a milk stout, and I don't get any of like that lactose milk aftertaste, mouthfeel stuff, which is actually a plus for me. I actually am not.
Yeah, you're not a fan of that, right? No. It's nothing to write home about. But I would give it to people just because of the name.
No, it's fine.
Great name.
Not great, not terrible.
So
Caleb,
A minus.
I don't know.
So-
Maybe we'll go B if we're going to go letters.
Okay.
So, how are you doing
All
over
right.
there, though?
So I'm gonna do a little pop for you guys here.
Do you remember when we used to do this live every episode?
I do. It was great, except for all
Nice.
the times that you exploded
yeah.
the beer all over yourself.
Okay, so I'm going to start off with how generous this brewery is. Every one of these beers is literally filled to the point where you can't open it without spilling it all over the place, no matter what you do. So that's a plus.
I thought that was just like the first 6-pack that I got, and then the next 2 were doing the same thing. And I was like,
I don't know what kind of science is going on there, but they have found a way to maximize the inside of these cans.
more beer.
Yeah,
It comes in
16-ounce
pints,
cans.
even when it
typically-
doesn't.
So
I was saying
So
most of these 16-ounce cans come with like 15.5 ounces of beer, but the Sloop ones come with 16.5 ounces of beer.
Exactly.
So this beer, its description reads, no boil hops and a finish that lands on the palate like a ton of feathers. An aroma of pungent tropical fruit and citrus with flavor notes of red grapefruit, ripe papaya, and a hint of black tea, crafted to crush. And it's sitting at 6% ABV.
Nice. That sounds delightful.
You know,
It
I
is.
don't think I'd be able to pick papaya out of the flavor profile of a beer.
Papaya?
I just wouldn't be able to.
I can't say I can.
To be honest with you,
I
I
could have
recently
lied and no one would have known, but
I ate a papaya for the first time like a month ago, and I didn't taste it. I don't know. It's very mild.
yeah. So it's
It's a weird fruit.
I guess, I mean, Al, you would know more than me. With the no boil hops, does that keep the IBU lower?
Yes. In order to extract alpha acid units, AAUs, which is how they rate hops, in order to extract that, it needs to be boiled. So typically, the way hops, they're categorized as like 3 different things, like bittering hops, aroma hops, like I guess you can kind of call like flavoring hops, whatever. The bittering hops are the ones that go in at the beginning of the boil because those contribute almost 0 flavor and aroma and only bittering units. And the ones put in right at the end of the boil give much more of the flavor and aroma. And then, like, if you put them in post-boil or dry hop, that's exclusively aroma.
I completely I lost you. Because
What that guy said.
There's a lot
is-
going on there, but
what he
it
said
sounded
is a thing,
impressive.
and it really works like that.
It sounded
all I
very impressive, but I honestly really thought you were going to test me at some point because when you said I thought you were going to be like there's flavoring hops, something other hops, hippity hops. I thought you were just going to keep going to make sure that we
Hip
were
to
listening.
hop. How's that go? That song. Hip to the hop. And
Was that Rapper's Delight or whatever?
yeah.
Wait, did you guys actually not hear me, or
No,
you guys
no,
just
we
couldn't
got you.
follow?
No, we
No,
100% heard
we
you.
got
We're
you.
just like, that's the smart guy with brewing beer. We're just like, yep.
I don't
The
know if
different
you've
hops do
heard.
different things. I got it.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but I kind of know a lot about brewing beer. You might say I even do it quite often. Like you
So
said,
sent me pictures of a sheet and a notebook, and I got pretty excited.
Perfect segue for a shameless plug.
Yeah, naturally.
Oh, we talk about Al's Ales all the time here. We do Al's Ales occasionally. Caleb, I would
We
have brought
actually-
you the most recent Al's Ale, but I haven't been across the river in a bit. So
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Sales does delivery.
We nice. We were playing Warzone the other day, and I was enjoying a brown owl.
a brown Al.
A brown owl.
No,
we'll have to,
We're not in the summer yet. I'm not.
We're gonna have to get that one approved first.
Speaking of video games, I've got some questions. So Caleb mentioned before the show started about something about playing Animal Crossing, and it's a game that's there's been multiple Animal Crossings. People are all the rage when it comes out. I feel like I need somebody to explain to me why I should be interested in it, because just from the outside, it does not sound like something that I want to be doing with my time.
Okay. So, all right. So let me start by saying the only reason I really knew what it was because on GameCube they released one during that time when Nintendo was just hitting them out of the park on GameCube, and I fell into that during a time when I had nothing better to be doing in my life than playing video games.
Fair enough.
So that was right around, I want to say 2000-ish, somewhere.
So that was yesterday. No, okay.
It was about give or take 3 weeks ago when I got laid off.
When I got my first GameCube.
No,
we weren't going to mention that on the show.
Oh, it's all good. Hey, I'm one of 3 million people, or whatever the number is.
3 million. It's 17 million.
Oof. Okay, sorry guys. I think I left some of you out.
The jobless report today came out for the past week, and it was like 6.5 million. It was like 1 million over what they expected.
Well, hey guys, we'll get through this. You'll be okay. So anyway, yeah. So I played the original. So this new one was something that I saw, and I was like, you know what? Like I got a little that nostalgia tingle. Mm-hmm. And so my girlfriend Kirsty, she doesn't play video games. She grew up with 4 brothers, so she was around them plenty. I'm sorry, 3 brothers. I don't know where the 4th one came from.
We don't talk about him.
He is the brother we do not speak of. So she never really plays video games, and I was like, you know what? Like, you should just get into a game, dabble, whatever. Well, the quarantine hit, and she started going a little nuts because she's like a constantly go person. So I'm like, you know what? There's this game. I think it'd be your pace. It dabbles in a bunch of things that you would like. Why don't you just try it out? I'll buy it on the Switch right now. So I digital downloaded it, got her on, and literally within the first 48 hours, she played 48 hours of Animal Crossing.
Oh my god.
So, that being said, if it gets the girlfriend approval, if you like that type of game, you will really enjoy it. So basically, it's a little bit of Minecraft, a little bit of The Sims, tied up in that colorful, forget your woes in life Nintendo package. So I highly recommend it to anyone that enjoys meticulous gathering of goods, tchotchkes, arranging your digital home.
And those are the things that I don't get, though. That's what.
So then do not get this game.
All right, I like to, I don't know, gather tchotchkes around my house, but I don't know. I don't know why I'd also be doing it on my Nintendo Switch. I feel like the Nintendo Switch itself is a tchotchke that I have gathered.
Hey, it's not just a tchotchke. We've played many hours of that ridiculous cooking game that I never
Oh my god.
Uncooked?
Yes.
Or overcooked, undercooked.
Undercooked is how the steaks come out.
Yes.
Overcooked is the game. It's a good game.
There's nothing like me and Anthony alone in his house playing Overcooked, Undercooked for like 6 hours. We're too drunk. Neither of us is fully awake, and yet we're somehow still.
I need that bread.
Yeah.
It's so
The oven's on
good.
fire. The oven's on fire. No, I got it already. It's fine.
It's so.
Did I just die?
Good. And they had a second one. They had Undercooked or right? Two.
Still Undercooked.
Overcooked 2. I'm sorry. I'm Undercooked.
Overcooked 2. It's just
Overcooked
burnt
2
now.
is what that's the one that we were playing. I think it was the second one. You're right though. That's
Good stuff. So anyway, long story short, it is not for everyone. And is there
an objective?
Yeah, basically. Well, so what you do is in the Minecraft or any game that's based around a crafting system, you're starting out with nothing. So the goal is to gain something over and over again until you have everything to a certain extent, or at least you have more and you have the better versions of things. So it feeds into anyone who enjoys a game like that, where eventually you start with nothing and now you have a sprawling town and a mansion.
It's a real rags to riches story.
Yeah, started at the bottom. Now we're here.
I'm intrigued enough to buy it and try it, but I just feel like within a few minutes of it, I'd be like, I don't want to do this.
Classic buy and try.
Classic Nintendo. No. So it's one of the best of its kind in that genre. It's a little less I think it's a little less overwhelming than something like The Sims because it's based around your individual character. You're not in control of a group of people. It's just you. So it takes a little bit of that overwhelmingness away, and it's easy for people. Like my girlfriend's a perfect example. It's easy to get into it, easy to learn the controls, and it's just a colorful Nintendo game. So
now, is it totally like single, or is there an online component to it, or?
So this one is Animal Crossing New Horizons. I don't know. I've missed about 3 or 4 of the releases in the franchise. I don't know if the other one's tied in the online play, but this one does. And the whole concept is islands. So instead of just a normal town, you land on an island. And then the whole idea is you can enable the online multiplayer. You can invite friends privately as you would to a Skype conference or something like that with a special code. Or you can randomly travel to randomly generated islands that are completely AI based and find new items and plants that you can then bring back to your island and plant them and continue forward, kind of moving on with the game.
Yeah.
Now, is there a Viking-like raids component to this game? Or?
I'm hoping for
what I really want to know is, can I wreck your island?
Can I build myself a fleet of boats?
I'm kind of
myself commandant or admiral, like rear admiral, and like come in, swoop in. The dramatic music starts playing, and you see reavers coming in with like torches and axes, and we will now take your things by force and bring them back, including your women and children, back to our island.
Well, as far as I know, this game is rated E for everyone, so you can write Nintendo, but I think that might change.
Yes, I want to take everyone, is what I was
going to say. I don't know if you know this, but the Vikings rarely spared anyone. It was everyone was involved.
Is there a rape and pillage mode in Animal Crossing New Horizons?
Rated E for rape and pillage.
Rated E for excessive violence.
Oh man. See now I'm like, I kind of want to play, see what this ridiculous game is about. But we made that part up, so I'll be back.
It's all right. I'm gonna pitch them this as a DLC. If you want to spend the extra $10, you can have the rape and pillage mode.
All right, easy, Al. We all know. Listen, Nintendo. We know you listen to our podcast, so we just want to let disclaimer that is not a game mode currently, but we're not saying it's not in the works.
We all know that Nintendo is one of our 12 subscribers.
I'm just gonna. I want to go to your island and just move all your stuff around.
See, now
because that would drive me crazy. All right,
that happens, and people lose their.
Yeah,
do you bleep this or is?
No, that's fine. It's fine. I clicked the "This show is explicit" button. It's fine.
Perfect.
It's got a little E next to it.
You knew how many fucks were dropped in this show.
A multitude of fucks were given.
No fucks were given, but many were provided. Something
new. Something good. No. So where the Spin Tune is building up a bit. There's some new stuff in the works. It's been in the works for a while. There's a lot coming. One of the things that I want to do is for all the people that are involved in some way, shape, or form, whether regularly or guest appearances, I want to go through the list of favorites. Doesn't have to be, you don't have to think too hard on it. You can give me the first thing that comes to mind. Because I feel like you could learn a lot about somebody by the movie, artist, game, book, and TV show they give you.
I really appreciate how much High Fidelity stuck with you.
Okay, so we're gonna you're right. We're gonna go through this right now. I'm gonna give you mine.
You're putting me on the spot.
Exactly. That's the point. You could change it later because you'll have a profile on our system, and if you need to update it as time goes on, you can update it. But
that all depends on what I answer, right?
I will lock certain things. All right. So
see, I thought he meant me because I gave him High Fidelity also as something to watch when he was caught up in the flu a couple months ago, and Anthony took up to it and watched it in like a weekend or something like that.
It was very quick. It was disgusting.
That was one of their core tenets, and I think that carried over from the book and from the movie, right? Like, you aren't what you do; it's what you consume, or whatever.
Exactly. That was you gave me that assignment. when I was halfway through Veep, and then the next week I was done with Veep, done with High Fidelity, and a season into The Sopranos. So it's time is moving.
I think you watched something else too that I didn't
I did. I
expect you to
finished.
watch.
So I caught up on Devs in a day.
That too.
So there was that. All right. So going through the list, I'm going to give you mine. And I said artist, and you can give me whatever you want. You can give me an author. You can give me a musician. You can give me a visual artist, whatever you want. I just said artist.
I was gonna say, is it like a musical artist or like?
It's open to your interpretation. So for mine, a movie, The Dark Knight. It's no surprise. You've listened to the show. You know that's already the answer. Musical artist, I put Counting Crows. Game, Halo. Book, Armada. And TV show, Friends. Okay, those are my picks in the moment. I'm going to give Caleb a minute to think about this. I'm going to go to Al.
All right, so
My brain is smoking.
movie, you're going to put me on the spot despite my very well-known on this show triumvirate of favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with Cloud Atlas.
Okay.
TV show, I'm going to go with The Americans.
I had a feeling you were going to go there. I was tossed up whether you were going to say that or Hannibal.
Those are the two that flashed before my eyes very quickly. Although Scrubs would have been up there too, but I trending more towards drama anyway. So, what were the other ones?
Artist, game, book.
Artist, game, book. Fuck. Book's gonna take me a minute to figure out because I've read way too many novels, as I've told you before. Artist. Let's go with Coheed and Cambria. It's an easy answer. Book. I know this is riveting to listen to.
That's fine. We know what your game is. Why don't you go there?
Game. Well, game is going to be the Mass Effect trilogy.
No, it's just one. You can only pick one.
Fuck, Mass Effect 2.
Putting them under the light.
The least compelling Sophie's choice.
I know, right? Book?
Gun to your head. Book.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to go with the Sum of All Fears.
Okay. All right, Caleb.
Okay.
What do you got for me?
All right, so I have a double here because I'm a nerd. So I have book. Oh, you want to do book first? Or
Yeah, whatever you want.
You say it. You say it.
All right, I'll say it. Book.
Okay, book is Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring.
Nice.
Perfect. TV show.
TV show. Game of Thrones, a good season.
So Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 4.
You don't have to defend the stuff you like, and it can have caveats. It's fine.
Yeah,
Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Yes.
Okay.
Season 1 through 4, 5. Game. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Beautiful. Good choice. Artist.
Oh, this is a tough one. Sting.
Oh, okay. And
I thought you were going to go with Colin Hay.
Oh, that would have. I do like him. I actually saw him live 2 years ago.
I know, that's why I said it.
He's awesome, by the way. And if anyone listening doesn't know off the top of their head,
He come from the land down under.
Yeah. A Vegemite sandwich. Yeah, and then so where am I at here? Movie. So I'm gonna have to go Lord of the Rings: Fellowship of the Ring by Peter Jackson again.
Oh, okay. So wow, same for book. That's what you were saying. That's your double up. Your movie.
Yeah, that's my double up.
That's pretty. That speaks a lot to the. You really liked the source material, and you appreciated the translation to film. That's solid. That's solid.
Yep.
All right. Well, now this brings me another question. How do you generally feel about movie adaptations of books?
Me?
Do you have a problem with them? Yeah, you personally.
I think for the most part, they are not successful.
Okay.
For the most part. I think that the reason why I chose The Lord of the Rings is because that stands out above almost any adaptation I've ever seen. I unfortunately I'm one of those people that does not read as much as they would like because reading tends to be like it's like a little therapeutic for me to the point where I'll read like 3-4 pages and I'll just knock out. Like,
oh yeah,
it's like a nighttime thing. So so it takes me forever to get through books.
I'm with you.
Yeah, but I did read all the Lord of the Rings novels and The Hobbit, and having heard the background of a lot of films that are made and knowing that they are adaptions, I mean, I don't know. I don't find that those movies are generally my favorite movies, even though I know a lot of them are actually adapted from literature.
Sure. Sure. Oh, cool. So I think there's some credence to this whole thing of like, what do people consume? Because I feel like from that I can get a good sense of your tastes. It really does. It's interesting. We're gonna do this with everybody that we come across on the show. All right, Al, hold me to it. And then the next episode that we have a guest that hasn't been on, and I forget to do it, we can go. Damn it!
They all get a heads up, and I was on the spot.
Exactly.
Yeah, but also think about all the other people who were deprived of this opportunity.
That's true.
It's true.
That's true. We still don't have this. We don't have these answers for one of our founding members, and I assure you that those answers will drive me batshit crazy.
What, Brian? You mean?
Yeah. We'll get them out there. All right. What have you been doing with yourself in these times? So Al and I have been watching a lot. Well, I've been watching a lot of stuff. Al's been watching me catch up on these things. It seems like he's slowing down on account of his time. But anything new that you've done?
I went from working like 20 or 30 hours a week to working 60 hours a week. So
yeah, have you watched anything new? Picked up any new hobbies? What are you working on?
So I have been watching some stuff. So Devs, yes.
Nice.
And Devs, yes, with a thumbs up.
And Devs,
Dave, the little Dicky show that's on FX as well.
Okay.
Lil Dicky, he's like he's basically like he falls in the genre of like comedic rap.
Okay.
And he actually built his career by going like door to door to rich people's houses in like Calabasas and begging them to let him shoot music videos in front of their mansions. And
tremendous.
He's a genius. He's very well spoken, super smart, and he
very
really
well spoken.
That too. That too. So he basically built his way up, became a full-fledged rapper on the scene. He's reached out, linked up, and made a lot of contacts and done a lot of like featured work with other big name artists. So he got a TV show, and I'm not sure if he wrote it himself. I'd have to look into it. Don't hold me to any of that. But it's on FX. It's basically Curb Your Enthusiasm, because he's actually Jewish. It's Curb Your Enthusiasm, but
I'm not sure what that had to do with anything.
Well, Larry David is Jewish. Am I correct?
Yeah, but that doesn't really like.
Oh, well, there's a certain humor and a certain.
Okay. I was like, it doesn't inform the existence of Curb. Like, it ends up becoming a frequent topic, but like, I'm not sure what the connection point is.
Imagine de-aging Larry David by 40 years and
making
putting
him a white
on
rapper.
Yes. Like, imagine some interstellar level stuff happened, and he went through a black hole, and he appeared on the rap scene now.
I cannot
when he
picture
was
Larry
26.
David as a rapper.
So anyway, it's very interesting. I would say give it a watch. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But give it the first and second episode were strong. Third took a dip, and then it popped back up.
Okay. It's one season so far?
Yeah, it's in the middle of the first season. It's not done yet. So
cool.
Yeah, so Devs, Dave, and Westworld season 3.
How's that show? Because I was super, super hooked from the first episode, one of the best pilots in television history.
Yes.
And then had to rewatch it 3 times because I was trying to get Kim into it, and she fell asleep once, and then we watched it again, and she fell asleep on the second, and then I just never went back to it. Is it worth my time?
Al, are you current, or did you watch it?
No, so it's funny because I was super excited for that show when it first came out, and I watched it when it debuted. Agreed with Anthony completely. One of the best pilots I've ever seen. Like, just even from just the production was so high, like higher than like Game of Thrones until it reached like the 4th season. And I loved the first season. And for whatever, I think there was a bit of a hiatus. Like, it wasn't a year till the second season. It was like, I want to say something more like 18 months till the second season came out. And for whatever reason, no matter how much I loved the first season, I never even watched the first episode of the second season. I
just never went back to it.
I had this feeling that, I don't know why, I was like intimidated to go in, or I was like, I had this like foreboding going into it, because like, by all rights, I should have been, like, the person who was, like, sitting, like, oh my god, like, Westworld's coming back. I really, like, with no restraint, loved the first season. And it's funny, because I didn't watch the second season, and, like, I was like, oh, after a couple of weeks it was in, I was like, maybe I'll finally catch up and watch like the first 3 or 4 episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw everyone complaining about it. I was like, man, maybe there was like something to it that I didn't decide to pick it up, because I know people generally seem to kind of hate the second season, and I've heard that it's struggling from a lot of the same issues in the third season. So
there is a little bit of a link to our episode tonight with there being a Nolan involved in this show.
That's right. His brother does it, right?
Is it brother? Their brother?
Yeah, Jonathan. Okay. Jonathan does it. Yeah.
Well, on that topic, you guys might be able to answer this, because I've been wondering, and I have not Googled it because I wanted to ask one of you to see if you knew. Why does Christopher sound like a Brit boy, and his brother is just totally normal New York Johnny?
I don't know that I've ever heard his brother's voice.
Yeah, I've never heard him speak either.
Well, has absolutely zero accent.
That's these two just have the same last name.
Is this a Freaky Friday situation?
Nor does he only and strictly wear blazers with button-down shirts underneath them.
Is this
now I have to do an interview, because that's going to really mess with my head.
I was like, Caleb, do you remember the Stoneburners in our high school? Do you remember how one of them had no accent and the other one had a fake British accent?
Is this a thing?
It sure is.
It wasn't like, I mean, we're laughing right now. It wasn't one of those accident situations, was it?
No, God. Absolutely not.
All right.
It was one of those, someone was entering high school and decided to try out an accent and then just stuck with it for 4 years situations.
Wow.
Oh, my God.
Wow. Yeah, really committing to the bit. That's very Daniel Day-Lewis.
I don't know what that was about, actually. That's actually troubling me more than the Nolan situation, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, you're just remembering now like it's been a decade since you even considered their existence.
Because I knew those people. There's no proof that the Nolans. There's no proof that the Nolans are real.
All right. Do you know them now? Real. Do you know these people now that you went to school with?
Neither of us have seen them in 10 years.
Because if you could track them down and call them, and if it's flipped, how much would that be like?
That'd be some annihilation shit.
So, all right. So, Westworld. Back to Westworld. Okay, so I, as you, had the same exact experience. I watched about 4 or 5 episodes of the first season and just fell off. Then probably I heard about rumblings of season 2 and decided, okay, let's give this a watch. So me and my girlfriend watched season 1, and we actually stuck with it, even though we felt that fatigue at like around the same episode. We pushed through, and then it started to sink its hooks into us, so we held on for the first season. We watched the second season. I will say it does suffer from some Nolanitis. Like, it's a lot, and sometimes you feel like, is this a lot for being the sake of a lot and covering up the twist of the show? Or is this a lot because these people are really on to something and this is worth my time? And that's where I think the issue comes into play.
It feels
that may be...
From what I've heard about season 2 and 3, especially season 2, it feels like Jonathan took all of the worst impulses of Christopher Nolan and J.J. Abrams and David Lindelof with the mystery box shit and combined it into one unwatchable show.
I will say that it seems, I'm kind of wondering if Jonathan has, it really goes out there and Chris maybe reins him in a bit when they're working together. I have a feeling that might be more of the situation if they're working separately and the results are very different. Maybe they just complement each other really well.
I think you're on the money with that, because I feel like I feel like at times he probably, it's nothing to say that he doesn't seek out Chris's advice on certain things that happen,
sure,
when he's in a rut. But I do feel like that's probably an accurate assumption.
I feel like it makes no sense for me not to go back to it, but for some reason I haven't been like, I have to watch it right now.
Yeah, no, I would say do it. Watch it. It's not like you'll come away from it with nothing, but it does get just a little like, wow, this is really a lot going on here, and I really hope it pays off. And it doesn't always pay off. It doesn't always strike when it needs to strike, but it's enjoyable. And this season, if you like Breaking Bad and you like Aaron Paul, he is in this season. So nice. There's a little something.
I will say, I saw the trailers. Jesse again.
Is he just playing Jesse again?
What I will say is no. I'll say. So here's the thing. So I will say
we're not forcing you to say.
They are pointing guns at their webcams.
That's when we edit it again and we cut his voice in. No.
So I have been programmed to say that yes, Aaron Paul can only act one character. He is very one-dimensional. No, what I'll say is I think he's giving a really good performance. I think that I think the problem with Aaron Paul is he chooses characters that are Jesse Pinkman. Not so much that he's not capable of playing other characters. I like to think he is. However, I have to say, of his entire filmography, I have seen Breaking Bad and El Camino. So I'm not a good judge on this.
I don't know. It just feels like he has two roles, and it's Jesse and it's Todd Chavez. So.
Oh well, is that from BoJack or?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I have not watched. Is that?
Well, it's Jesse cooking meth, Jesse on the couch, Jesse in the future, which is what you're working with right now. And there's Jesse in a car, that's Need for Speed, and there's Jesse behind glass, and that's the Apple TV show that he's in.
And the thing is, Todd is still just another version of Jesse, just like a way nicer and more clueless one.
Okay.
I'm with you on that. I would like to see him. The thing is, he's very good
shot.
when he's in one of the roles. I would like to see him do something different.
Yeah,
I agree.
So it could be interesting. But we were watching. I'll get to this in a bit. But we started watching The Sopranos, and when you're watching an HBO show, the ad beforehand is usually something relevant to what's on right now. So lately, it's been Westworld, and it's futuristic. It's like in some city, Aaron Paul's running around, and now, mind you, I've only watched like the first 3 or 4 episodes of the first season. I'm like, where did this show go? Something's changed.
Yeah, for sure. It's not easy to pick up on it if you have not seen the background, you know. It's worth it. I think it's worth it. I mean, I'm probably biased because I've put the time in watching it, but I'm hoping that it pays off. For season 1 by far is the best season so far.
Okay.
So I would say if you can at least watch that, then you can decide how much you want to give it a chance. You know.
Fair enough. I think I feel like I'll end up watching it at some point. Now with all the seasons building up, I could just keep going through them. So that's fun.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of actually watching all of these shows one after the other. By the time it's over and it's like all of a sudden midnight, I just don't feel very good about myself. But it's been happening a lot lately with all the stuff that I'm watching. Well, I guess it also depends on the material too, because a lot of this has been happening with The Sopranos, where I'll watch like 3 to 4 episodes of it, and then you just feel gross afterwards.
As someone who binged through Sopranos just over a year ago, you definitely feel grimy or dirty or just depressed sometimes. So I try to keep that to like no more than 2 or 3 episodes at a time.
So I'm coming at The Sopranos for the first time. Not a lot of context. I know a handful of things obviously get spoiled over the years of certain things that'll happen. I will say I like going at it from this angle of not. It's the first time I'm seeing it. I don't have any other context other than that. Everybody seemed to love the show. Similar thing to what Al went through when he watched it. The one thing I will say is it's been a season and a half it took for me to be like, all right, I'll probably watch the rest of this. The first season is not that it's just okay. The first season of that show is bad. It's bad television. I'm throwing that out there now. I do not think that it's well written. I do not think that it's well acted, and I don't think that any of the character or relationships are compelling. In the second season, they start to actually build relationships.
It's funny because a lot of people hold the first season of that show as the clear-cut best.
Ugh. Which makes me concerned for the rest.
Well, the thing is, a lot of it starts to blur now because I did watch it relatively quickly. Like, just as far as which storylines were in which season. Like, if you said, oh, the first season was about blank, I'd be like, yes, okay, that makes sense now. From what I remember, of the first season, I actually thought it was written pretty compellingly. The acting was a little inconsistent, but there was a lot of no-name, or like the children, those actors were very young then. And they get better as they go, although it doesn't really matter how much better AJ, the actor, gets. Was it Robert Iller or something like that? Because he's the worst character in all of TV history. I will hear no argument against that. He's the worst character ever.
We'll have to see.
Fundamentally useless. He provides zero value to the show at any point.
I'll check back in with you when the series is over. I don't dislike him. The only two characters I'm rooting for are the children. So
no, Meadow is fine. I mean, she can be annoying at times, but she's fine. She ended up having storylines that mattered. She ended up having sequences and character development that was relevant. And eventually she kind of gets softly phased out of the show, but it makes sense because she eventually does attempt to distance herself from the family to a certain extent as she becomes more aware of what's going on. AJ is just like a useless character because he doesn't do anything except whine. And the only value that he has is occasionally there's a laugh at his expense, but even then a lot of times I end up just feeling like bad for him. And it's not like if he functioned adequately as like a plot device, and even that only happens like once or twice in the 6.5 seasons of the show that there are. So
Caleb, did you watch it?
I have not, so no. I can't really weigh in on this.
No, that's fine.
I've been told to many times.
A lot.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, what's his name's like Gandolfini's performances are great. Edie Falco's performance is great, even though at times that character is really underwritten. Imperial is good as Chris, even though Chris can be a super annoying character.
Oh yeah.
Drea Di Matteo's good as Aid. What the hell is her? She's just Aid. Adriana. That's it. I just love that little Steven is fucking Silvio. I had no idea that was even him.
Yeah. Of all of the characters that have no necks in that show, he has negative neck. It's ridiculous. It's insane.
His head is actually recessed slightly into his collarbone.
Straight up turtle. Oh man, it's strange. There's a couple of triggering things in the show for me. The first one being,
well, it's probably harder for you because you and your extended family is closer to some of.
It's not even that. It's just growing up on Staten Island where that accent originated.
That's what I'm saying. You're a lot closer to that stuff than me. Like, I've always had that at arm's length. For you've lived, not the mob part of it, but like you've lived like the accents, those like types of people like who are in the periphery of that. You know what I mean?
Tony, I'm pretty sure is based on a kid. This is horrible. A kid I went to grade school with. Like that's that's how he sounded. He had a pinky ring. It was giant and gold. He talked like that. He would always slick his hair back. He was 500 pounds. It was ridiculous.
That's a big boy.
Man, it's hard to watch. So there's that bothers me just because I thought I got out. Just like Silvio, just when I thought I was out.
They pulled me back in.
So there's that part of it. The other thing is there's a lot of people saying how so many other people are terrible and selfish, and it drives me crazy when that person is so terrible and selfish when they're constantly saying it over and over again. And I get that's the point, but it's like it makes me cringe and it makes me physically like I want to hurl something at the TV. It's not good. Makes me angry.
What the show is like quote unquote known for in like the zeitgeist is, oh, it's the mob show, there's all these great stuff, there's great lines, blah blah. That's not what was compelling to me in the show. It's not the best parts of the show. The meetings between him and Dr. Kuzmano are a lot of the show, and that's the most compelling stuff. Even honestly, some of the family shit sometimes it can be wildly annoying. Sometimes it's great. It's not like it's like a great action show. There aren't a ton of great action sequences or anything like that. there are some really good performances, and some of that is from the guest stars. There's some good stars over the years that join on for 2 or 5 or a season long run. Joe Paliano's great when he joins the show. I forget the guy who plays Johnny Sack. Johnny Sack's a great character when he gains more prominence. What's his name? Buscemi was good in it, although his character, the writing around his character confused me a lot because they seem to be setting him up to something and then there's just like a hard left turn out of nowhere. And I was like, wait, I don't know where the fuck that came from. I don't know if it was one of those things where maybe they like cast him and they were expecting him to be around for like a long time and then they found out he was going to be around less long than they thought. So the character just makes like a hard turn out of nowhere. And I was like, since when? But there is a lot of really good performances. There's a lot of like people who pop up. There was a couple of people, like even like older actors who were like, oh wow, that guy, I remember that guy. Like he was like famous like way back or whatever. Who get some cool turns in it. Like the guy who plays Feech LaMotta is an older actor. I don't remember who it is now. You were mentioning Robert Patrick confusingly to me over the past 24 hours. Totally forgot he was even in it.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, it's good. You had mentioned like the therapy sessions are probably the most compelling part of the story. Even more so when what they actually do, which I actually think this is one of the things that I actually find clever about the show is they'll give you certain theories and certain ideas of why a person approaches a problem a certain way or reacts to something a certain way, and then you could blanket that onto other things that happen in the show, which is great. That actually is cool. I think that's a clever way to write. Like give you an understanding of why a decision that would seemingly be ridiculous is made, right? And that part of it's cool, but it feels a little bit more like a parlor trick. Like it's cool a couple of times. I'm gonna need more to the story than just that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some big misdirection stuff. As the stakes start to raise on the show, I'd like to see how you still feel about it. The thing is, the show also gets darker along those timelines until the point where it's like, it's just really depressing. But the thing is, this story always had to go that way because these are bad people. And they don't necessarily get to win, you know?
I will say one of my favorite things I've been enjoying the most is there are one-liners just like you can't even imagine. Like they're the most ridiculous things that people will say. And what it usually results in is Kim sitting on one side of the couch and I'm sitting on the other, and they'll say something and we'll just slow turn towards each other. And then repeat that for the next 5 days. So one of which, are you out of your tree? I haven't heard anybody say that like outside of I maybe like my mom 25 years ago. So that one really got me. I thought that was really funny. But the other day, one hit me, and I have been thinking about it since, and every once in a while it pops into my head, and I just start laughing. One character is reading a book, and Tony says, "What are you reading?" And she says, "Chicken Soup for the Soul." And he says, "You ever read Tomato Soup for Your Ass? It's the Italian version." It's like, this show is ridiculous.
Wasn't that Carmela who was reading it?
No, it was his Gumad.
Oh yeah.
But it's got some ridiculous one-liners in it. But anyway, that's one thing that I'm diving deep into now. I've got one episode left in the second season, and like I said, halfway through the second season, started to actually get interested in the story and where it's going. So probably going to play that one out. But a big one ended this week, guys. Schitt's Creek is over. Caleb, did you watch it?
So I'm not current. However, I watched up to... I'm very confused with the show. So what is it originally air on? Is it a Netflix show or no?
No, it's
CBC.
It's a Canadian show.
Okay, so I watched up until. Are you both current? Are you current?
Oh yeah, the finale was Tuesday. We both watched.
All right, so the last episode that I saw, I thought was the last episode of the show, and it really confused me. Probably a noob mistake to assume it was. But basically, it was they did the play, and
Cabaret.
That was the finale of last season, right?
Okay, so then I'm one season behind. I did not know that currently they had started a new season that had yet to air on Netflix. So I'm up to the last episode of last season.
Was it last season or the season before?
I thought it was last season because didn't
Am I too behind? I might be too behind.
Didn't that? Well, I mean, if you put on Netflix, is there more seasons after?
Well, that also depends if the last one was up on Netflix.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how they do. I don't know the rate at which they
the
put
release
them on
schedule.
Netflix. I don't know if it's like one behind or more. I don't know.
No, but I thought that I watched all of the preceding seasons on Netflix. That's why I was asking. But wasn't wasn't the play what like spurs Stevie on to considering changing careers at the beginning of this season?
Maybe it might have been this season. That might have been the end of the last season. So yeah, either way, that's a tremendous episode. That show really is just so funny, and I give them. I know it's like one of those things. It's very easy to be upset when something that you really like ends, but I give them a lot of credit for being like, we're done here. Like we're finished with the story that we want to tell and wrapping it up.
I find that extremely respectable, especially in the day and age, and the way that content is pushed out now. You generally feel like it's more. Can we do more? Can we do more? Can we get more views out of people, or should we be done and should we do more?
Right.
Well, that's why I really enjoyed the post show. After the finale the other day, they ran like an hour-long thing showing some behind the scenes, some like retrospective of how it was started. Like they were showing like kind of the progression. They checked in on a couple of days of production of the final season, and they did interviews on set with different
how many times did you go?
I don't think I ever did that, but it got a little dusty when I was watching it. It was, what was special about watching this show is it was very obvious how much these people loved working with each other, and I always really enjoy and appreciate that with a show when there is a general, not just a lack of strife, but like an active, there's that synergy can show up on screen.
Yeah.
When everyone really genuinely likes each other and likes working with each other and likes what they're doing.
Yeah, 100%. For sure. You could feel it when you're watching something like that.
I did check real quick, and yes, the Life as a Cabaret was the final episode of the 5th season. So the 6th season just finished airing this week.
So I'm not so far behind. So
yeah, you're just one season behind,
and then I'll watch the last season.
Weren't they free on Pop? Like the
you can watch them on Pop.
Yeah,
the Pop app I'm pretty sure is free, and you could just stream them there. That's where I watched it live.
Pop TV was the station that airs on in the U.S. when it was live.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So for those of you keeping score at home, if you need a good show to watch, Schitt's Creek, 5/6 of it on Netflix, and the rest of it on Pop. But do it. It'll go quick. I'm ready to rewatch it at the end of the year. That's how we're planning on doing it at the end of the year.
And that was my part of the intro. That was the name of the after show was Schitt's Creek. Best wishes, warmest regards.
Which is also one of the greatest quotes in the show.
I was saying it was kind of a running joke, right, between David and Stevie.
Yep, absolutely. There are a lot of great shirts of quotes from that show that are really just really tremendous. And when Kim and I went to see the live thing where they all came out on stage and did like a Q&A.
It's funny, when they were showing that, I was like, I'm pretty sure Anthony and Kim went to that. Yeah, they showed a bit of that.
There was a bunch of them, but we went to one. And there was even more shirts there. Like, like the end shirts, like it was like Johnny and Moira and David and like a lot of those shirts. And then a bunch of stuff with like David's face on it, like a giant shirt. Or even the clothes that he wears in the show, which is so many ridiculous outfits.
Cal, for Halloween.
Designer is on point. I mean, even for all I know, honestly, he's like just hilarious.
He was
and like
very
socially
heavily involved with it.
He was. They did a whole segment on that in the after show that him and like the costume designer designed most of the cast stuff, including his and Moira's stuff they spent the most time on. But Anthony and Kim were Stevie and David for Halloween this past year.
It was great.
And Anthony had like the rings, the glasses, the shirt, all of it. And it became like this whole cult thing. My favorite thing from all of it, or just the thing that shocked me the most, was the Night of 1,000 Moiras. There was this was it in Philadelphia or something like that? There was some bar.
So good.
That's awesome.
They hosted a night where 1,000 different people in 1,000 different Moira outfits.
Is awesome.
It's so good. Okay, so I've got something came up. There's not a lot of news that has been coming up in regards to movies, but something did come up. Is a VFX artist said that, yes, it's true there was a butthole cut of Cats, and they removed the buttholes.
I heard that. I didn't know if that was real or not.
So, what I have to offer you is this horrendous choice. You have to watch one of these two things. You either have to watch the butthole cut or the Snyder cut. What do you watch?
Oh, it's the Snyder cut.
The Snyder cut with the buttholes.
Yeah, the
Caleb's
Snyder
answer
cut.
is just yes.
The Snyder
double
hole.
feature?
The Snyder hole cut.
The Snyder. Really, Al? I'm surprised. I thought it would be a harder choice for you. I know how angry you are about that whole thing.
I am, but if
The
you're
whole
giving me
thing.
this impossible choice, you're giving me this impossible choice. I might as well go with the devil I know.
That's all right. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, baby. It's Al Pacino.
So, Al, what about you? You been watching anything? Anything good?
Sometimes I watch things.
Yeah, well, basically it's down to now sometimes I watch things. Well, see, the problem is, so I'm out working every day. I do not get to enjoy the benefits of the quarantine season. I'm on the front lines, unfortunately. But the rest of my family is all quarantined.
Maybe Frontlines is not what you should say, since there are a lot more
I'm on the
serious
front lines
things.
of being on top of people all the time. Like, I'm not saving anyone medically.
Yeah.
But I mean that I'm literally in contact with people all the time. Although, thankfully, most of the time I get to try and hide from them as much as possible. That being said, my family is all quarantined. My dad is working from home. My brother is working from home at like half time. My sister is kind of doing college from home, and my mom is off. So when the weekend comes around, like they're all like, "Oh, we get family time together," and I'm like, "You guys are together all the time." So like, I don't have any time to catch up with stuff on my own on the weekend because they just want to do stuff together on the weekend. Yeah. And so like, I had to like squeeze Interstellar in obnoxiously on Sunday with the family around for half of the movie, which meant I was literally just had it on full volume because there is 70% of the dialogue in that movie is whispered.
Mm-hmm.
And
it is a McConaughey movie.
Well, it's not just him though, is the problem. And
grumbles and
100% of the score and action.
Yeah.
100% of the score and action, like music, is at like 120% volume. Yeah. And it's just blaring my speakers out.
There's a lot of obnoxious trumpet.
Yes, distracting trumpet. So like that was the only time like I've got to do something like for myself, like by myself, I'll say, during this like the weekends. So during the week I have like 2 hours to myself a night, and I'm not even keeping up with what I've been watching. I've been keeping up with devs to the best of my ability. I watched it and finished
moments ago
before we started recording this. I watched Better Call Saul yesterday, and like that's all I'm really keeping up with. I'm like 6 episodes behind on Homeland. It's the final season of that, and I wanted to be able to finish it when it was finishing, and that's never going to happen because I think it might be finishing this weekend.
Caleb, are you watching Better Call Saul?
I wish. I'm not. I have to.
You still never started that up?
No. I'm current to the last season that came out on Netflix. I just
Okay.
don't. I don't have cable, and I don't have like a service that I get AMC currently. Maybe you guys could let me. I mean, do you guys use cable or do you use something else to get?
No.
So what do you guys do?
I don't watch
Can you
it.
legally say this?
He watches it totally and completely legally. And I have DirecTV. But I thought AMC was pretty good about making available like their episodes on their app or whatever.
As far as I know, as far as I've watched, it's all been on Netflix. So,
So check out their app because I thought that was one of the ones my brother used, and I don't think he used any login.
Oh, that they just air their stuff. You think?
So well, yeah. So I mean,
so you watch it. You're just not up to date.
Yes, I absolutely love it.
Great show, tremendous show. I'm one episode behind. There was one that came on this week that I haven't watched yet. But
this week was really strong. And if you needed your Breaking Bad fix, like your
this is the one.
Like this was.
It's been ramping up. Okay,
this could have been a breaking. No, but like this specific episode could have been a Breaking Bad episode because a lot of it is in the desert. A lot of it is just Mike and Jimmy.
Oh, okay. Exciting.
It's one of those types of episodes.
Sounds real good.
So you're up, Caleb. I wasn't sure if you were kidding or not. Are you up to date on devs or no?
I did not get to squeeze in today's episode, but
so
aside from that,
one back.
I am.
God, that show is so damn good. All right, Kim was not. We're not going to talk details.
Hey, if you need me to.
No. Kim was not super thrilled with this episode, but she was just annoyed with decisions that were being made. I was super
by the
into
show or by the characters in the show.
Just the characters in the show.
Okay.
But which will we could touch on that in a future episode.
But did anyone make any decisions? It might be deterministic.
Interesting. I'm hooked on that show. The format is amazing. The fact that this is it. I love that this is it. I don't know why I'm so excited about it, but the fact there's an end in sight. I like this.
Now, until listening to last week's episode of your podcast, I didn't even know that was the case. And when you said that, I got extremely excited. I've become sort of not obsessed, but anytime I hear a show is doing that, I'm just like, I'm all in. I'm like, this is going to be better material. There's no way it can't be.
Because you can't write an ending if you have to leave room, right?
No.
So why, just stop. This is why movies are my number one. TV shows that end are my number two. And then the other TV shows are three.
Well, it's funny. You were talking earlier about, adaptations of movies, or movie adaptations of books. And it took until Game of Thrones for me to realize this is totally untapped market of let's adapt books to shows because you don't have to cut all of the connective tissue that makes a good book so special, right? Because, considering the amount of detail, it's truly a masterpiece how the Lord of the Rings movies came out so well, because that would have been something that was totally ripe to be totally an abomination in movie form, as opposed to if you gave it the longer treatment on the small screen. There's so many other movies that, didn't work as well because you had to cut the things that made it such a cohesive, deep piece of, whatever. Weirdly, some of the Clancy's actually succeeded because some of that stuff doesn't need to be in there, but some of them also flopped dramatically. I think that had more to do with direction and acting.
Sure.
But this obviously wasn't an adaptation. It was written by Alex Garland for this format, and I like that he was given free reign within this format to write as he saw fit. Because I don't think they gave him, it has to be 8 episodes. He probably was like, I wrote something that's 8 episodes. They're like, great, we're going to air it.
Right.
If it was 9, we'd air it. If it was 12, we would air it. Rather than so many other shows where they say, okay, we're greenlighting you for a 12-episode season, and you see those episodes where it's like, you could have probably condensed this down to 10, you know what I mean?
Yeah, or 3, Walking Dead. The first season of True Detective. Again, I knew it was going to end having a full solid so good. Having a solid story like that.
Everything's 7 degrees from the reconnaissance.
Things need stories need to end. Stories need to be able to have an ending. A TV show with an open contract is not going to do it unless it's a comedy. I feel like comedy doesn't work most of the time.
Caleb, we ran into an issue last week where I thought I had said something to you and Kirsty when we talked on our Zoom call, and maybe I didn't, and I must have talked about it with Anthony the week before on the show. So did I not mention to you then that this was a limited series standalone, and that Alex Garland is writing another show for the whole cast?
I 100% remember you telling me the whole cast thing. because I was actually excited. I like that. Is that considered an anthology when they use the same people, but it's like a different story every time? What's the?
I don't know how they'll treat that.
I used that word wrong.
No,
I need some knowledge dropped.
No, you what you were alluding to was yes, when you look at something like American Horror Story, where most of the main cast tends to come back, and it's an anthology, it ends up being within. Thematically or within the same world, different stories. Same thing with True Detective became an anthology. But this doesn't sound like that's going to be the case. Now, maybe that could change, but I think that the idea is going to be that it's an entirely different world, entirely different story. He's said, I don't want to do sci-fi for the next one. I want to do something else.
All right, I respect that.
So,
Which isn't to say that it couldn't exist within the same world, but I don't think he's going to feel compelled to like do that. Now, maybe they could do an umbrella of it's Alex Garland's devs, it's Alex Garland's whatever, but I wouldn't consider it exactly the same thing unless you're branding it that way because...
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
What
I
if
do
it's
remember you saying that. Oh, go ahead.
what if it's like a View Askewverse thing where they link up and then Nick Offerman's like, hey, finger cuffs. Like what? Like it just really just points out another character. Psycho with the computer. Whatever he wants to do, I'm watching it. That's where we're at. That's where we're at with it.
I have to give Al a plug on the podcast. 100% the only reason I know who Alex Garland is, which is sad on my part, but he told me. So me and Al go to the same gym, and often talk about these sort of things while we're there. Back in the golden days when we could be around other human beings. And
back when our gym existed,
were books in our house. Exactly. So we'd often talk about movies or whatever, and he told me you need to watch Annihilation, and I think it actually stemmed off a joke because one day I said something or he said something, and then he was like, "Nah," and I just looked at him weird. And he's like,
why are you making that noise, guy?
No. What it was I said something and Caleb did the Inception noise.
Okay.
I said, I was like, oh no, me and Anthony
There's
have
a new one
sound to replace that. And I found him. There's that like 4-second clip on YouTube of just the sound.
You just sent it to me.
And I sent it to him, and he's like, "Oh my god,
it's so perfect."
My head explodes.
So he actually put me onto Annihilation. It had been a movie that I had seen advertised and stuff when it first came out. I just never got around to watching it, and decided, okay, let me watch this. He told me to. I watched it. Me and my girlfriend made the mistake of watching this movie starting it at about 9:00 at night.
See, me and Anthony watched it at 9:00 in the morning.
No.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm
9:00 in the morning. Came out of the movie theater, still afraid of screaming bears. No.
So okay. I wasn't sure if I shouldn't spoil it or not. But
It's fine.
That was horrifying. But I mean, it was like, yeah. It was literally like me side-eyeing my girlfriend, looking at her face, trying to see how is she taking this right now, because this is hard for me.
What fresh hell is this?
This is uncomfortable. So it hit us with its full impact, and Mimic Man to follow that up. I was just like, oh no, this is nightmare material. I'm lucky if I sleep tonight. So that movie left an impression for sure. And when he said that guy, the Screaming Bear guy, was going to do a TV show, I'm like, okay, I'm in, but am I in? I don't know.
What if the next show is about the Screaming Bear?
I'm out.
Okay.
I'm out. I'm out. It's
again,
too much.
So
still
I was
a
like,
great name for a
give us.
band.
I was like, did you go back and listen to our episode on Annihilation?
I believe I did.
Okay, I couldn't remember because I know you saw it.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, so everything gets jumbled, and I also listen to a lot of movie review podcasts, including yours. So I don't remember what I've heard of it. I'm pretty sure I listened to it though after I watched it that night.
That's what I thought.
Listened to your episode because I wanted to listen to it.
Because when you saw Annihilation was one of the last couple times we were at the gym together.
Yep.
Before it was closed.
Before the end of the world began.
Before the end of the world. So I couldn't remember. So I was going to say, what are your just quick impressions, thoughts about that movie? Because we talked about that in the past on here. Me and Anthony love that movie.
So powerful, impressionable, original. That would be because I mean that word is it really. Maybe 20 years ago that really wouldn't describe a single movie, but I feel like if you use the word original to describe a movie now, I mean it's pretty. And I know it was adapted from a book, and I know that he took some artistic liberties. Right?
Yeah, so, with the ending, and part of it is because it was I think a trilogy of books, and Alex Garland said like, I don't really have an interest in doing a trilogy. I was just compelled by that one story, and I wanted to write an ending to it where it's somewhat open-ended, but it is a conclusion to that story. There shouldn't really be any continuation of it.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I mean, just the way media is in general, it's even hard to find an original book to adapt. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
just even if he took his own liberties, the subject matter in that movie and just like the way it was making me think while disturbing me at the same time, it was like an elevated horror, like mind thriller. And I was
I got to be honest. Going in, I had no idea how horrifying that movie was going to be. Like, I didn't feel like it was billed in any way, shape, or form as a horror movie, and yet I feel like it was the most horrifying thing I've seen ever.
Yeah, no, it was very powerful, and like that word can mean many different things, but a movie definitely sticks with me if I describe it as powerful personally, and I really enjoyed it, and that was my bridge to Alex Garland, and he kind of gained like my trust. So I would put some time into trying whatever he puts out after that, and now with Devs, that's just like two for two on that one.
So we're gonna have to get me and Anthony started coming up with a list of like looking back, and I'll say quote unquote older movies in the sense that they're not new releases. We need to add Ex Machina to the list, and we'll have Caleb watch that and come back on because that's the one he hasn't gotten to yet.
All right, okay. We're getting to the point of 125 episodes, and I don't remember. We didn't do Ex Machina?
No,
we just talk about it enough?
So
okay.
much.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I've listened to a good amount of your guys' podcasts, and I would swear that you reviewed it because I feel like if you clipped together all the talks you've had about Ex Machina and put you don't even need to re-record.
Yeah, when we don't have a week, I'll just edit old episodes down into a new one.
I'm not a big fan of clip shows. But, I mean, listen, it wouldn't be the first time we recorded one episode on the same movie, or 2 episodes on the same movie, so.
Radio silence.
I'm going to leave that dead air in there. I'm going to try to, but a lot of that gets automatically clipped out. That was intentional. We absolutely didn't do that.
We would never do that.
God. I do want to watch Ex Machina again. I've been thinking about sitting down with that one again recently, especially because of Devs. A lot of like visual stuff going like side by side there. I mean, it's not related at all, but it's got the same heart.
I mean, I feel like this one is probably more closely related to Devs than like Devs and Ex Machina is more closely related than
what about that last scene of Devs though with the bear? I mean, come on. Why don't we dive into some fun and games? I've got a quiz pulled up here. I've got 2 of them. This went fairly smooth last time, so we'll see how it goes this time when we did it with 2 people. We're going to see if you guys can last in space with this sci-fi movie quiz. All right? And hopefully these questions and answers are in the same order so that we can do this together because the 2 of you are taking this quiz simultaneously. All right.
I might suffocate in icy death.
Also, here's what we're going to do. Some of these are actually legit like trivia, so I'm going to give you the question and the options. Then I'm going to count down from 3, and you're both going to answer at the same time, because I don't want one of you influencing the other. You know
That's going to be a train wreck. But
it's going to be horrible. It's going to be an absolute disaster. Garbage party. But we're going to try it nonetheless. Which movie includes the line, "What are you telling me, that I can dodge bullets?" And here are your options.
It's that one that Caleb just referenced.
Is it...
Oh my god,
Is it Time Crimes, Inception, The Matrix, or Memento? I want your answers in 3, 2, 1.
The Matrix.
All right, cool.
Al only said Matrix. Isn't he technically wrong?
He's wrong. Yeah, it was, what is the Matrix?
Listen.
All right.
W's are made on technicalities, Al.
2001: Space Odyssey is a classic written by Stanley Kubrick, and which other sci-fi giant? John Scalzi, Isaac Asimov, Philip K. Dick, Arthur C. Clarke. 3, 2, 1. Answers.
Dick.
Philip K. Dick.
All right. So far, you're both either surviving or not. We're not really sure where this is going to go. So
I didn't know the answer. I just that guy has the word Dick in his name. So.
Awesome.
Well,
Way to go.
He's written a lot of like.
I appreciate the honesty.
He's written a lot of influential like sci-fi stuff, like Do Electric Sheep dream, or do do androids dream of Electric Sheep? That was the one, and a bunch of other ones. Arthur C. Clarke, I know, wrote a lot of sci-fi shit too, but I don't know what he wrote. So
some of these are a little too easy, so I'm thinking maybe I won't even read you the answers.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right, ready? In space, no one can hear you scream is the tagline for which classic film starring Sigourney Weaver?
Alien.
Well, say Alien.
Right.
Well, he didn't do the countdown.
That's right. That's my bad. I apologize. All right. This movie was set in a post-apocalyptic outback. What is it?
Ooh.
Oh, interesting. This is a
Robert, do the
picture.
countdown,
All right, here we go. There's a guy standing on a road on a barren land with a car, a particular car of note next to him. 3, 2, 1.
Mad
Max.
Nice. All right. That one's silly. What book was the movie Blade Runner based on? Interesting. Do you guys need options for this one?
Wasn't it?
I don't know. Al's gonna have to take this one if he
Wasn't it the one I just referenced?
What was the one?
Do androids dream of Electric Sheep?
I didn't hear you say that, but yeah.
Oh.
When we were talking about Philip K. Dick, I said he wrote. I butchered it the first time. I said, do androids dream of Electric Sheep? That's the
without Caleb knowing that one. I'm going to choose one of these other random options. Does that sound fair?
Okay.
That's how we're going to do this ridiculous multiple choice question thing. What is the license plate of the DeLorean in Back to the Future films? 3, 2, 1.
Pass.
Boobs.
Wow, neither one of you know. All right, you're each getting a random selection.
It wasn't BOOBZ.
It was out of time.
Oh.
All right, we're continuing the quiz. Oh boy, this is one of those ones with multiple pages and no indication of how long it is. So strap in. All right. Star Wars is one of the most epic sci-fi series of all time. Name the planet that Leia grew up on. 3, 2, 1.
Alderaan.
Ah, damn it. That's not a good look for a Star Wars fan. I'm sorry, guys.
All right. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What you call someone who... sorry about that. In The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, what might you call someone who knows where his towel is?
Can you give us the options?
Sure, I'll give you guys the options for this one.
Please.
A Zaphod Beeblebrox, a dolphin, a Zarkenfruit, a Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster.
Let's go with D.
I'm gonna go with A.
All right. What kind of creature is the Thing? I'll give you options. Alien, ghost, demon, mutant.
Alien.
It's an alien.
All right. Here we go. Number 10. In Logan's Run, what age are people when they are euthanized?
No fucking idea.
All right.
We get options on this one.
Actually, here, yeah. All right, here's your multiple choice options. 18, 21, 25, or 30. I'll need your answers. Actually, it doesn't matter because neither of you know the answer.
25.
25.
Oh.
Okay.
All right.
Power twin.
At least we know exactly.
In E.T., what Halloween costume does the titular character wear?
Ghost.
Al?
Whoops.
Al, what do you got for us? Do you
That
have an
was a
option?
technical difficulty.
Wait, what?
In E.T., what Halloween costume does the titular character wear?
I thought it was a ghost, yeah.
Oh, wait. No, he has like an ugly wig on, right? And lipstick or something?
Oh, you're right.
Like an old lady. Like a weird old lady.
Your answers are
You gotta
locked
give us
in.
the options, goddammit.
What is the name of the fifth element in The Fifth Element?
Ooh.
Caleb's never seen it, even though
Oh,
I
No,
thought
I did. I watched it on a flight back
All
from
right,
Vegas.
I'll read the answers.
Wait, you finally watched it?
Yeah, I watched it on a flight back from Vegas.
Nice. I'll read the answers. Caleb will guess. I have a feeling
This
Al
year.
knows this one.
Last year.
Okay, because I was saying, because we were talking about it for like years, and you were like, oh, I didn't see it. I was like, how?
Adamantine, Lilu, Cronton, or Dilithium?
Yep. It's Lilu.
It's Leela.
It is absolutely Lilu.
Lilu, Dallas, multipass.
Chicken. All right, last question. How would you rate this quiz? I loved it. It was pretty okay, not great. I feel like you need the answer before you could really answer this one.
It depends on if I win or not.
I
That would change my rating.
100% I have a feeling that if you say not great, you lose, and if you say you loved it, you actually win. That's my guess.
I was going to say, I'm going to go with I loved it just to pander.
All right.
I mean, being that this is the greatest podcast ever and I got a chance to guest star on it, I would say I absolutely loved it. It made my quarantined 3 weeks.
Oh my god, this is a disaster. All right, sending the results. Hold tight. What is this fake loading screen? What is this? There's not even an ad on it. What? All right. You guys got different answers. Interesting. Al, you won't turn up your nose at a good sci-fi flick, but they're not your go-to. Share and see if any of your friends are more familiar with the genre. I'm not going to do that. You got 8 out of 12 correct. It doesn't tell you which ones you got right, which ones you got wrong. Oh, right. I think I blacklisted this website.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I'm never doing a quiz from them again,
using.
And here we are.
Oh, is this that one from a couple weeks ago?
No, it's from a long. It's like from the early days of Fun and Games. All right, I have to keep a better list running. Caleb, you've seen a couple of these movies, but you still failed this quiz. That's it. Nothing else. It's just a complete savage response from the Quizmasters at Magic Quiz. It's X if you want to share this with your friends. I'm just gonna say no.
I'm gonna go on a hard pass.
It's a hard pass. All right, next guys. I promise next time I'll have a better quiz handy. It was in a pinch. I looked at the list and I realized I forgot to add one so that we could do something decent. It's a disaster.
I'm not going to sleep for at least 2 days with the answer to that Leia's planet question. Not good. Not good. I'm not okay with that. I have to be better.
I did get a new card game. Al, I know you have a trivia game. We should probably bring that on the show at some point soon.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how it was going to play on the show.
We could just do a couple random ones. Doesn't really.
Although it probably would be good for one where we have a guest.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, and we you kind of battle it out. Maybe we'll do that with the next guest. I do also have another game that just came in the mail recently, which is Jay and Silent Bob's Big Fat Card-On game. So it seems like it's a twisted would you rather type of situation. So if I could figure out how to get that one into the show, we'll do that.
Sorry, you just said card-on, and it reminded me of the Parks and Rec where with the Swiss chard stand, get a chard on.
Oh my god, that show.
Charred bodies.
All right. Without further ado, let us get into our flick of the week. Interstellar, released in 2014, PG-13, 2 hours and 49 minutes. A team of explorers travel through a wormhole in space in an attempt to ensure humanity's survival. There's your IMDb synopsis. We're going to dive right in with our tweet-length reviews and ratings. So giving you mine first. A Jonathan and Christopher masterwork, the emotional survival odyssey through time and space creates a gravity you can feel. Without caveats or hesitation, this movie is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. That's me. So, Caleb, what do you got for me?
Okay. Put me on the spot here. All right. I will let it be known I didn't get a chance to script this, so this is coming straight off the top of the head.
That's
fine. I love this movie. I am honored to have, I don't know if you guys are planning on doing this movie or if you kind of rolled off Al telling you that I kind of asked, hey, if I could ever be on the podcast, I'd love
it
to.
definitely surfaced, and I was very glad that there was another reason for Al to see it.
Okay.
Well, we had a thing going on, and I'm sorry to interrupt you giving your tweet-length review, Caleb, but we had a thing. I don't know why I didn't see this movie, because I do love Nolan's work. I love all the Batmans that he did. I love The Prestige. We did that a while ago on the show. Inception was great. And Memento was very good. I only saw it the one time. So I had no reason to not want to see this movie when it came out, and I just didn't. So we had this thing where Anthony was like, when you see it for the first time, I want to watch it with you. And we've just never gotten around to it. But it's one that's come up in recent times. Like, oh, we're definitely going to do it. It's going to be there eventually. Like, we'll do it for the show. And like you bringing it up was like, okay, we don't have any new releases coming out. We have no excuse not to just fire it up and watch it at some point. So why not now? Like, there's no time like the present.
Yep. So, the reason that was the one that just rolled off the top of my head when, you were talking about movies that you'd want to ever do or anything like that. This movie, impacted me when I first saw it. And it really left me with a feeling to the overall movie, even more so than most Nolan films. I'll get into it more later as we talk about various parts of the film, but I feel Nolan's movies tend to have kind of a cold feel to them. There's not a too much heart. It's more like thought-provoking subject matter. This movie hit my heart when I watched it. Not to sound cheesy or, but the reason I chose that soft, this the beer with the soft teddy bear name, I was fighting back some tears at a couple parts in this movie, and between Zimmer's score and the scenes, I literally, even watching it today just to refresh, and I watched it 2 weeks ago with my girlfriend, same thing happens to me every single time. So that's a little longer than 140 characters, but
what's your rating?
Okay, out of 10, I'm gonna rate this. I'm gonna go 9 out of 10 because for me it's hard to do 10 out of 10 there,
sure.
But so 9 out of 10, solid. Love it.
I know you've listened to a good handful of our episodes, but I don't know if you know this, but if you mention in a positive light Hans Zimmer, it's the quickest way to Anthony's heart.
100%.
So
he is my new favorite person. You've been bummed out. You've been bummed.
I guess we have. It's now a full-time 3-person podcast. So
you had me at Hans Zimmer.
Well, it's okay because he is my twin in power. Me and Caleb have the exact same birthday.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
Yep.
Like to the second
90, baby.
Well, no.
No.
Day,
Yeah, both our moms waited and pushed at the same time.
Yeah, that's like the time you came out to our birthday in Hoboken. It was our birthday. We have the exact same birthday.
Oh.
But anyway,
shout out to being in public with other humans.
Yeah, remember when? There's gonna be so much fucking anarchy when like all of this is lifted and everyone can go out and do stuff again.
Lots of blackouts.
It's the two of you, but it's the two kids from Talladega Nights running around yelling anarchy. I don't know what it means, but I love it.
All right, my tweet length review: a slow, somber look at the personal, professional, and societal costs of saving the world. While Interstellar coldly keeps you at arm's length at the start, it slowly unveils a deeply emotional look at doing what it takes to save those you love and those you've never met before.
Nice. Very nice.
Nice.
It's funny that you brought up the cold thing. It's a criticism I've heard of a lot of Nolan's work in the past, specifically this one, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts later on about this, the conversation and the consensus around this movie. But I thought that was a specific criticism levied at this movie, levied at a lot of his other work. I've never really got that. I'll rate this one an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. It was really good. What I'll say for people who maybe are a big fan of, on the surface, his movies, let's say the three Batmans and Inception, because that's most of what people know of Nolan. Not everyone is a huge Prestige fan. That's got a much tighter, like niche, well, not niche, but it's got a much tighter, cult following, I feel like. It's not as widely viewed as Inception was. And this coming after Inception, there was a lot of hype for it. People went out and saw it again because that movie was a phenomenon, right? I think the reason that people maybe didn't take to this one the same way is that the pacing in this movie is so different than his other well-known movies. It's really, really a slow burn for the majority of the first 2/3 of the movie. And that's not a criticism. It actually fit really well for this movie. But the emotional thing, what I've realized, I think, or my thesis on this is, and it's largely anecdotal, right? I think the way he makes his movies, you get out of it what you bring to the table yourself. I think if you're expecting him to literally tug at your heartstrings and drag the tears out of you, then it's not going to happen. But if you can get to that space on your own, there are subtle depths to all of his movies that, or at least to most of them, that, it's there if you have within yourself the ability to go find it. Because I found myself getting emotional at parts of this movie as well. So I don't understand how people can have that perception of him being cold. And I've heard terms like cold, like out of touch with human emotion, like stuff like that, in reference to some of his movies, and I don't get that criticism.
I feel like I don't really get that criticism either. I also have heard that. I do think it has more to do with his visuals and people not realizing how much that really affects you. His constant cool blue color palette, it'll depress the shit out of you. Like it's not uplifting in any way. It is cold and distant.
Well, it doesn't have to be uplifting though, and that's kind of my point.
It doesn't, but it's there all of the time, and you don't realize how much that something like that affects you.
Well, this is the only movie that I felt like it was. Although, actually, I guess to a certain extent, it's true of Inception as well. The movie starts by holding you at arm's length. That's an intentional choice, and I think what happens is everything that's going on, you don't realize by the time that it peaks, or at least from an emotional standpoint, by the time it peaks, you look down and you realize that that hand's not there holding you at arm's length anymore. So it's up to you to bridge the gap. It's there for you. It's there if you want it to seek it out of it. But if you can't get there on your own, it's not gonna yank those feelings out of you.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that. It's like you watch it like maybe the first 30, I think it's like 37 minutes or so before you even get into the space travel and all that. But when you're watching that portion of it, kind of like what you're saying, I feel like the parents there with you, and you're asking you're asking questions, and they're just like, watch, and then when that like moment hits, they're just not there anymore, and like you're saying, then you make of it what you will.
Like learning to ride your bike.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like just slowly released you, and you look back, and all of a sudden you're riding on two wheels by yourself.
I was gonna say, if you can't, like, there's some emotional stuff early on, like when he's getting ready to leave, and Murph is inconsolable, and she pushes him away, like that's sad. And I don't know, like maybe for some people, like you'd have to be a parent for whatever reason. Like I obviously I'm not, but like I thought that was sad, but I wouldn't say that was like. That didn't really grab me too much. Like, it was like, okay, like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But by the time, and, like, this is, like, briefest, we're not really fully lifting the veil, right? By the time he's getting messages from them in space after they've gone through the wormhole, like, if you can't access that in yourself in those moments,
you're dead inside.
It's not that you're dead inside per se, although that is possible. Like, that's not a failing of the script. It's a failing on your part. Not an irreparable one, not a permanent one, but like it's meeting you halfway. You have to meet it halfway. Is kind of how I viewed it. And for me, I want to, especially if the movie is any sort of good, I want to give myself over to, I want to suspend disbelief. I view movies as a communal thing, both with the people you're watching and discussing with, and a movie or TV is a relationship between you and the screen. And I want to embrace whatever is coming out of it. I want to be a part of it. And so what you put there for me, I will reach out and grab if it's good. And this is a good movie, and it is well written, and that moment is powerful if you let it be.
Sure.
So this movie has varying timelines, different subject matter, even though we're spending most of our time in a space station. Can we go through this in a somewhat chronological manner so that we can kind of just all hit points as we go?
I'm fine with that.
We generally do, although we are known for our wild tangents. But
oh no, that's fine. I'm down for that.
So we generally start with pre-spoiler stuff, although for older movies that is typically a very short period of time. We lift the veil and then we just go.
Yeah. Okay. So, actually, we can probably lift the veil sooner rather than later, since the movie came out in 2014. You've had years. If you watch the show or listen to the show, you've probably seen it, right? I mean, like it's otherwise it's worth seeing before going further. It's funny for me. It's not even so much about where it goes. Where it goes is very interesting. It is the journey. The whole journey is amazing. And upon rewatching that movie, I've seen it probably 4 or 5 times at this point. And
same.
So many decisions make more sense after the fact, and that's just because of the like you've had enough time to live with these characters, right? You just like clear point, Al. You mentioned Matthew McConaughey's character Cooper leaving Murph behind. It in the moment, the first time you're watching it, it seems a little abrupt. But upon further rewatching and seeing who he is as a character, makes total sense that he would do that. He has a monologue later on explaining the like decision to like keeping your kids safe and all this stuff, and it really does. It's very heavy. It's very short, which actually a lot of the monologue deliveries are almost like one-liners, but they're like they're very powerful.
It shows you the strengths and weaknesses of that particular character, because he chooses at a moment's notice, this is the only way to save my children. This is my only way to save the world that my children live on. I'm going to go do it, no matter what it costs me. Mm-hmm. And that is commendable, but it also shows you the shortcoming of the character, because he can't he doesn't even try to communicate that to her, and that is the cause of their rift that spans her entire lifetime.
Mm-hmm. Well, he explains why he doesn't explain it to her. Go ahead, Caleb.
Oh, so this movie is visually having been released in 2014. Obviously, every few years, we make leaps and bounds visually. This movie is still holds up.
Oh yeah,
this movie is strong.
It looks so good.
I watched it in 4K, so that was a treat for that to be my first experience.
Okay, so it's good to know. It's good to know that as well. I don't have a 4K, so to hear that part is also amazing. This movie is very visually strong. I'm sure we'll talk about some of that. Mm-hmm. But I feel that as far as just written wise, this is some of his stronger work. I think that he relays a lot of strong and emotional information very quickly in very shorthand. And I think that that's a huge reason why I didn't know that when I first watched it, but on the rewatch, writing down some of these lines, which as we go through, like I've written down some that really stood out to me. I mean, it's really well written.
Yeah.
And it's very shorthand, but it's very effective. And I think that's a huge part of why this movie is a 9 out of 10, a 10 out of 10. Yeah. Even Al's got the harder scale, but 8.5 on Al's scale, that's up there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's funny. Yeah.
I think it'd be the type of thing where if I'd seen it multiple times, maybe I would have been more. But just like sight unseen, the first time I'm watching it, there was a couple of things that were ever so slightly clunky. That just things that a little bit. And
I agree
ultimately,
with that.
even though I liked and appreciated, respected, understood the slower pacing, they could have tightened it a smidge, because it is a long movie. It doesn't quite justify it, but like I'm talking about, like, could they have trimmed 10 minutes? You know what I mean? Like that's not,
interesting.
Like,
you might be right. I do think that there's a reason behind that though, and there is, while you said that you called the movie a slow burn, it's a slow burn the whole way through. I like the slow burn in this particular case. I
do think it was an apt choice for the story.
It was. I don't think that, and the pacing is not erratic in any way though. It is the same pace consistent the entire way through the movie, which has a lot to do with the time that they're exploring.
Sure.
So it definitely, if an ad came up as when your Amazon Fire Stick went to sleep and it was describing a movie that just came on Netflix with the 3 words at the bottom, it would say slow burn for sure. but it never gets so hot as it hurts me. That's how I feel.
Sure.
So I actually wrote down that I thought this movie was incredibly paced. I thought that there were times when it did feel like it was getting a little long, but at times. But then right at that point, he does some shorthand stuff where normally he might actually indulge in some of those transitions, which I really appreciated. Mm-hmm. Like there's some time. So if we start around the beginning of the movie, somewhat, like.
Oh, actually, sorry. 1 second before you say anything.
Oh yeah.
Let's just say the veil's lifted. We gave you our reviews. If you haven't seen it by now, go see it. I don't want you to have to beat around the bush. I really want to talk about the movie. So don't
potatoes.
Yeah,
baby.
don't hold back.
All right. So I made a couple notes about just the pacing is well done. I think the transitions that he chooses when he chooses them are extremely effective, and it doesn't take away from the important emotional parts. So, for instance, I mean, I would go even earlier than him leaving Murph. I think that's a scene that we all feel should be emotionally stronger, and I think it bothers us because it's not. And I think, like you said, Ant, that's definitely has something to do with Cooper's personality and his character, for sure. The thing that was awesome to me, and this comes down to the writing, in the first minute and 58 seconds of this movie, it literally slaps us in the face with the twist to the entire movie, which is classic Nolan. He literally says, he wakes up from a nightmare. We see him on his ship in his past job, which we know nothing about. So we're like, what? Oh my God! Like, this guy, what's going on here? He literally wakes up in a cold sweat. Murph walks in the room, and then the first lines of the movie we hear is, she walks in. Murph, what's wrong? She says, I thought you were the ghost.
Yeah.
Literally, not even the 2-minute mark.
Yep. That, and you know what's funny? That is super early. That's the first scene with our main, what we assume will be our main characters going forward. The actual first scene of the movie is completely black with a voiceover, and you don't find out until the end of the movie that's old Murph. That's crazy.
That's true. I actually didn't. I didn't catch that. See, 4 times watching it.
It's crazy.
I didn't even think about that.
No, but you're right. I thought the ghost thing, that this time watching was the first time I caught that line. I have that too, and I was like, oh my God.
Was that the voiceover you're talking about? Was that when they were showing like the clips from like the video? Like,
yes.
So the funny thing is, I actually picked that out immediately. The one who's old lady, I was like, that's gonna be her as an old woman. Like,
so
as soon as I saw it, I was like, because they did the visual language that they use in this movie in a lot of scenes is really great. The young actress Jessica Chastain, and then the older actress, there are strong points of commonality between their facial structure. Obviously, the 2 younger actresses have the red hair, but the physical features of their face are very similar, and the way they keep their hair. As soon as she came on screen in that, I was like, that's going to be her as an older lady recounting this transcendent experience across her lifetime.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that alone, literally, I was sitting down to, the first time on the podcast, I wanted to bring something, because you guys are the pros here, but I was like, don't take too many notes here, but the first 2 minutes, I have to take a freaking note.
Yeah.
I have to. So yeah, I mean, that part. And then the other part is, I think the part of this movie that makes it so impressionable is that it's so, somehow, even though the subject matter they're dealing with is so beyond where we're at right now, and kind of further than I hope we ever get, it's so grounded in reality to a certain extent. The way that he built this world and the way it works and the machinery and all this, which we can talk more about, TARS and the actual robots and all these things. The way that he also does this in a subtle manner is, when you're watching the beginning of this movie, the clips that you're seeing of these older people recounting this hardship is legitimate clips of Dust Bowl survivors from a 2012 documentary.
It's so crazy.
And and it comes
it
across,
fits
though,
so well.
Exactly. And you're just like, the first time watching, you would never, he ripped the documentary and put it in the movie, but it's incredible. And these are the little things he does. I just think that this movie is so cleverly done.
Well, you know what? To that point though, pulling that footage to do that, and then also shooting something that looks exactly like it, that's come on.
Well, there's a lot of things, and like you said, even just in the first few minutes, that when you re-examine it as you've gone through the movie, as I was saying with the visual language, when we see his dream with the crash, that exact scene, that exact angle that they're showing the shuttle, is the exact one they show multiple times on the other planets later on. So it already puts it in your mind, is that a dream of a memory that haunts him, or is it foreshadowing to something that'll come later? You'll only realize it once you get into those scenes later, you're like, was that something from the future or something from his past or something imagined or what? Because, and that's a choice, right? Is to keep shooting the shuttle from that particular angle, that close up, in different atmospheres, because you can start to the reality bleeds to a certain extent, right? You're not entirely sure can we trust what we've seen 100%. Not an unreliable narrator per se, but like it's the tricks of that sort of thing. And even what you mentioned, that first line where I thought you were the ghost, right? It reminds me of, and I've not been good at this yet. I imagine as we continue on with this show and with some of these movies, especially as we stick with directors we really enjoy, right? I'm not always good at picking out things that evolve or carry through in, like, because that's really deep, like cinematography, like cinephile stuff, right? Like of like things that get carried through. I think of at the Prestige, the very beginning, the voiceover where Christian Bale says, what are you watching? Pay close attention. I forget exactly how he says it. I know I'm paraphrasing.
Literally asking the viewer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you watching closely? Like, pay close attention. And now
Dirty Nolan.
The evolution to, instead of literally having to say pay attention, it's you better be paying attention, because one of the first things we'll do, and it's the same thing early in Inception, like there's stuff like that. It's been a while since I've watched the beginning of that movie, but I know there's stuff like that at the beginning of that movie as well, where if you're not watching from the second the credits end, watching closely, he wants to keep you guessing, but he won't be upset if you get it, because it means you were watching closely. It means you were paying attention.
It's just that I've given you everything that you need. So if you haven't figured it out, you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
And you know who you're messing with, too. So it's like...
There's also... I really do... There's something... It's really fun. We watch so many movies, right? Al and I, Caleb, it sounds like you watch a lot of movies yourself. You're constantly thinking ahead. Where's this going? Making guesses most of the time, right? Because a lot of stuff, as you mentioned earlier, is not original. It's easy to see where something's going to go, right? I really like when I don't see where something's going to go. That I love getting caught by surprise. Even more so, I like when I didn't know, but you figure it out just before it happens because you've pieced it all together in the run-up, and that build-up that you get as something is unveiling is like, oh god, and like there it is, it's happening. It's like, and you're like you want to spit it out right before they show it to you. And, like, and he does. That's his style. That's what he does. It's so good.
Yeah, you're living in the movie.
Yeah,
and that is a very strong way, and that means that it's either well paced or well written.
Mm-hmm. Or both.
Well, we were talking about Annihilation earlier, and that's why that movie stuck with me so much. Is the first time I saw it, and I mentioned it when we did our episode on that one. That is one of the very few movies of recent vintage where I truly didn't know what was coming next the majority of the time. Most of the movies that we watch, I can figure out 90 to 95% of it before any of it ever happens. Sure. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it's because we watch so many movies, right?
It's a language. Film is a language.
Yeah, exactly. So to be able to fly so far in the face of expectation is a real treat when you get those types of movies. And this movie, actually, I mean, a lot of it I did see coming. I figured it out, like I said, some of the visual language stuff, some of the Nolanography. There were certain things, hell, I'll just throw it out here. The second Wes Bentley showed up on the screen, I was like, oh, he's going to die. The second that they went into space and, what's his name? Not David Oyelowo. David Gayassi. The second he gets nauseous, it's like, oh, he's going to die too. Fantastic.
You're not gonna have it.
Like, it's one of those things, like, the guy who says, I've got a bad feeling about this, he always dies. The guy who's struggling to hold up to it's like, no, he's just not going to make it. Like, and it's a shame because...
Crewman number 6, he's going to die.
Yeah.
Oh, man. It's something that I noticed this time around. We don't get a year, right? We don't have like you make some assumptions about the time that it's taking place, but you never really get it. They don't give you a year, I don't think.
I don't think so.
So
not I,
No.
I if we do, I missed it as well.
going through
No,
it,
they don't even say like in the near future or in the distant future. It just is.
yeah, I do
like that though.
Yeah, oh, me too. It makes me think about like where this is taking place, right? Like who, like,
And it's also always, I feel, in film, we're always behind where we will be.
mm-hmm.
Up to a certain point. I mean, up until the 90s, up and honestly till the 2000s, look at almost any 80s movie, any 90s movie. They're short throwing into the future. Like,
well, look at Blade Runner or Back to the Future, both 80s movies, sci-fi. Both of those movies took place like now, and they're nearly infinitely more futuristic than we are in real life, right?
Well, I just feel like when you put a timestamp, I think it was smart of Nolan for this film to not. I feel like lesser directors like using year marks. They like saying, this is 2032. Like, but the thing is, that gives us a timestamp where we can decide as the viewer, do we agree with this or not? Do we think this is going to actually be like this at this time, or is it not? It's actually stronger to just be, this is a time. What do you think it is? There's Dust Bowl stuff going on, which took place in the 1930s. Meanwhile, we have monolithic robots that can talk to us, and we can adjust their emotional settings.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a stronger way to do it.
Great character, by the way, Tars.
That was a great scene.
We'll talk about
Set
So-
humor to whatever 70%.
Yeah.
65. You're talking yourself into 55.
So yeah, absolutely. So as you were saying, no year.
Yeah, well, the reason why I was asking is because there was something hit me this time around watching it, where I actually felt like there was. I felt like what I got out of it was that John Lithgow is our generation. That's what I got out of it. I don't know what made me think about that. There were certain things that went on.
That's interesting.
In the movie.
It's funny because I actually thought McConaughey was our generation.
Yeah. I felt like, based on the tech, I feel like we're not there enough that in 10 years or so, depending on how old he is, because Matthew McConaughey doesn't age. Is it going to be him? And I feel like it's too far out for some of the stuff that they were doing is too far out for us to be him. But I thought it maybe not far out enough that it could be Lithgow that is us. That's why I don't know.
Well, he's like, yeah, but the problem is that truck is like contemporary with like trucks that we have right now. You know what I mean? Like the truck he was driving around. Mm-hmm. Like he's what, like 50 now in real life, and when I say contemporary with us, I mean like he would have, because like I know like the you're talking about only 20 years now, but that movie came out 6 years ago, like so like contemporary with where we would have been then. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like so, call it maybe a 25-yard span from when the movie came out. That's somewhat realistic, but even if it's 35 years, like whatever, like it's not like I felt like we're closer to him than to Lithgow is, I guess, what I would say, because the way he talks about like MRI is like they didn't sound super futuristic where there was a ton of expansion into that. You know what I mean?
No, the point about the MRI thing, which I also think might fit with what you were saying about the car, is that they stopped making certain things because they needed to make like farming equipment and other stuff.
I know that's what I think we're agreeing, even though we're saying it different ways. Is like there didn't seem like an extrapolation on that technology. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like you said, that like they put kind of a hard cap on how much farther they went with it. So that technology was contemporary with us. So even if we're off by 5 years ish, you know what I mean? Like
right.
That's kind of like the point. Like it was still something. Like it wasn't like when I was a kid there was MRI. No, my wife could have used one. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like he remembers MRIs.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a distant hazy memory. It's something
that's a good marker
that he grew up knowing.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's a good marker. I hadn't even thought about like the actual voices and who they were meant to portray, you know, as far as generationally. Mm-hmm. But the MRI part is definitely, that would probably be, I would say that's probably one of the only markers we really have aside from the drones. I mean,
you got up for a second.
Drones are drones, so that could be any time in the future.
You got up for a second, but I also mentioned his truck was one of those contemporary with our trucks as well. So
Yeah. That was what I started to zone in, like, on his world building in the movie, which maybe more so than usual. Like, he really, really took his time. Again, we said 30 something minutes before we go to space in a movie that's titled Interstellar. So, like, you take your time, you learn the character, you learn the space. A handful of things that I really enjoyed. We talked about the short statements that he'll make, right, to really build something out in this one. Just the line that last season for Okra, like, getting this concept, like, this is the norm. These are the types of things that are happening, and just like that's like it seems throwaway, but it really does build the everything around them and what's going on.
That's a great point. I mean, that feeds into the whole the rewatchability of this movie, and the fact that you have to rewatch it. That's why, even though you watch it and the plot twist might be, you know what happens, it's still, you can keep rewatching it, because these are the lines, though. These are the lines that make you think, and these are the lines that help you place time, and help you find a place as to when is this happening, and how is this world. Where's this world going? What kind of dire times are we in?
Well, there was something really to, like, what you were saying. That one line is, at one hand, like, it's what level of, like, depth you want to go into it, right? And this, what I was making the point with, like, the emotional core of the movie is, like, is what you're willing to bring to the table to match it. If you want to just take it at face value, oh, that's it for Okra, right? And it's like, man, that's crazy, which it is. But then, like, take it a little bit further. There's a level of disbelief in the way it's delivered, but it's also not, it's, I'm shocked but not surprised type of thing. Like, I saw it coming, just I was hoping it wouldn't come so quickly, right?
Right.
And then, take it another level further, it's, oh, this isn't the first time a crop has ceased to exist on the planet. It'll never be again. Wheat has not existed for 5 years, or whatever. Like, something like that. Okra no longer exists, and it never will again. All we have to eat, really, is corn. And that's on its way out, too. Like, for just the utter, like, lack of existence of staple crops going forward. And there's not panic, not real panic involved. There's like, well, he should have grown corn, or we'll just grow more corn. We'll get through it. Like, there wasn't a panic of, holy fuck, that's the last time anyone will ever eat okra. Like, could you imagine today, if someone said to you, now, let's swap out okra for wheat, right? Guys, the last wheat crop died. Huh, wait, like in New York? No.
Ever.
Doesn't exist.
No
more wheat. Bread. No more bread. No more anything. It's gone. We're going to have to make everything with corn and barley now. Like, fuck, really? No wheat ever on the entire gigantic planet that we have? Not a single more wheat? That's revelatory, right?
I was something about the way you phrased that. Not a single more wheat.
I shouldn't have gone for the funny phrase.
That could be Alzael's cereal venture. A single more wheat by Alzael. He's been eating his a single more wheats.
Think about how revelatory that sentence is.
Yeah.
No more wheat. And how they just powered right through it. Like, which shows you how commonplace that sort of thing is. So that's 3 levels right there to just how deep you want to engage it on. Like, that some of these things work on so many different levels. That is the world building you're talking about.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And talking about wheat and corn, so moving into that, the a little bit further into the sequence of the movie, the corn chase.
Yeah, heavy agriculture,
Yeah, so the corn chase is the first time that we hear the theme.
Yep.
Yeah.
So can we, we can talk maybe more about more really in depth about the music, but as far as just like the way that they sprinkle the soundtrack into this movie is also one of the best done that I've ever watched.
Yeah.
And you posted in the Slack earlier today the soundtrack of this movie, and I was just so happy. Number one, that you had Spotify, because I don't know why, it just it just irks me when people send me an Apple Music link. I don't know. I'm not about it. I have an iPhone, but I am literally a diehard Spotify guy. Mm-hmm. It takes up all my screen time every week when I get that weekly update on screen time. So when you sent that, I was like, yep, I've already listened to this whole thing multiple times. I'm like, this is my type of jam. Like, this is great. And then when you said you were working to it, I was like, he's gonna get all his work.
The movie scores are my focus tracks. It's there's a This Is Hans Zimmer playlist that is just
chef's kiss for all the viewers that can't see. No, yeah. So that cornfield chase. This is the first time that we get the sprinkling of that the organ, which is the primary instrument on the soundtrack. And from that second, like one of the notes that I had made was, it gets me. Like that organ and that soundtrack in that moment, without even knowing where this movie's going to go the first time I watched it. Like, I'm watching a dude with a flat tire and an old pickup truck and his 2 kids just gun it through a cornfield.
And I'm so interested. Why am I so interested?
I'm in. Like, I'm in.
Well, that really is one of like a strong example of the power of that score and how they choose to deploy it in its various, because there are some variations on it, right? How they choose to deploy its various aspects, because without that importance of the introduction of that theme, that's probably one of the scenes you could have omitted, really. Like, it doesn't really matter all that much, because the drone thing never comes back up again.
No, it doesn't. I mean, the most that you can really like squeeze out of that scene is a little bit of the relationship between like father-daughter, teaching her things, and it gives you a little bit of a stronger background on how tech savvy and how how crafty Cooper is.
Yeah.
And it kind of like adds another layer to his background, which up until that point, other than his dream sequence, you really don't get much of that. But other than that, like you said, I mean, you're 100% correct. That scene could be gone. There's plenty of other information in the movie that would help you piece that together.
That's true. I guess there were other scenes that showed the mentor relationship between him and his daughter, and other scenes that showed or told about his prowess with technology, where if it wasn't for the first time where you get just a little bit of juice in what's going on, race through the cornfields, flat tire, switching drivers, hacking a thing, like, and that giving you an excuse to deploy the theme for the first time in earnest, outside of that, like, it's really just a kind of like a thematic choice. Like, it doesn't need to be in there for the story.
And there's also, if his son was a little hot on that gas pedal, if he hadn't kind of
game
given
over,
that
man.
I put a note there. Movie ends here.
So also, is that the exact same cliff that was the scene from Thor Ragnarok when they like track down like Anthony Hopkins and then like Odin dies and then Hela shows up for the first time? I think it's the exact same cliff.
Who knows? Who's to say?
Oh my god, that's so ridiculous. I've talked to Al. You probably heard this before too, Caleb. But I've been saying for years now, I want somebody to make the movie that is hyper realistic, and in that first 5 minutes, when the person does the ridiculous thing, they die or it's over, and the credits roll. Right? I want that.
You gotta walk out of the theater.
This movie, this is the closest that we're going to get, is Christopher Nolan giving you the ending of the movie within the first 3 minutes. On a rewatch, you could pick it up, right? But not the first time. I feel like this is as close as I'm going to get to that. Maybe one day we'll have enough money to do this. But again, the whole thing, it has to be sold well, right? It's gotta be listed with a really long runtime, like an hour, maybe an hour and 30, hour and 45. But the movie ends in 5 minutes. But then it's like credits, and then it's black for just an hour. Like, just
we need to kickstart this movie. And a little factoid, if you want to look it up, it's worth a read. This was going to be a Steven Spielberg film.
Yeah.
If you read the plot to this film, it is literally hilarious. It's like take Nolan's film and then Spielbergize it in every way that you would imagine, you'll literally laugh. I would encourage you to look it up.
Spielbergize.
Anyone that's interested, look it up online. You will not regret it. It's hilarious.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to now. But when while we're changing the tire, which we never do change, to be clear.
No.
Yeah, I wrote a note about that too. I was like, I don't know how that's gonna work here. You might want to change that tire.
Now that you mentioned how are things going to work, how does Timothée Chalamet grow up to look like Casey Affleck?
Oh my God! So that's exactly where I was about
He's
to go.
so dead on.
I thought that too. I was watching that scene when he's talking to him, and he's doing the whole underbite thing, the Affleck underbite, and he's going. Timothée Chalamet's doing this, and he's saying something. I was like, wow. I turned to Kim. I was like, I could actually see him growing up to be Casey Affleck, and she goes,
he
ha,
sounds like him.
yeah. She goes, that's funny.
That just comes down to like the acting chops of Timothée Chalamet. It's funny because I was watching and I was like, he reminds me of Timothée Chalamet, but I feel like I would know if he was in this movie. And it turns out it is him, and I just didn't know he was in this movie.
100%. But I said that, and
but
Kim,
that's
Kim
not flattering.
Little, Timothée Chalamet bowl cut.
Kim laughs at it, and I didn't realize this. She didn't remember that. She just thought I was saying that. She didn't remember that Casey Affleck was in the movie later.
That's awesome.
And then when it came up, she goes,
the thing is, I didn't know he was in that either. So
That's hilarious.
So anyway, to finish off my point about Timothée Chalamet and Casey Affleck, I'm just really confused. I guess it worked because, like you said, he does the Affleck underbite, but like, why would you inflict that upon Timothée Chalamet? Why would you inflict that association, like that whole like general curse?
You're just trying to bait me. Affleck? You know, I like the Afflecks, and you don't. We get it. We get it.
I know you like Ben Affleck. I don't actually know your thoughts on Casey.
He's fine.
I mean, he's a lesser actor of already a bad actor, a lesser looking dude. Also, a dude who has been kind of credibly accused of, if not assault, harassment, like, just generally not a great person to be compared to. And, like, Timothée Chalamet is quite an actor. He is also considered fairly attractive. Why would they do that
You're conflating actors and the characters they're
playing.
Why would they do that to the boy? Why would they do that to the boy?
I think we've given both Afflecks far too much audio time here.
I agree.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
So okay, again, still first half hour of the movie. We get a lot of time to live with the family. I really liked that. One of the things that stood out to me this watch was we are setting you up to understand that these kids have to deal with abandonment in are going to in multiple times throughout their life, right? And not like shitty reasons. Well, for shitty reasons, but not like shitty choices. Like their mother died of cancer. Their father is going to save the world. They don't know the stakes really that he's going through for that. We realize that with them being left with their grandfather, and this is going to take some time, they're going to eventually be left alone because the he's getting up there, and he doesn't seem like he's overly healthy, and nobody in this time seems like they're going to really last that long with all that dust kicking up. So,
oh my god, that just reminded me of in a couple years ago, or several years ago now, I guess, in Curb Your Enthusiasm, when Bob Einstein's character Marty Funkhauser, his mother and his father both passed on the show, but he's like a 60-year-old man. And he says, I'm an orphan. And Larry goes, can you be an orphan, like, at this point in your life?
Oh, man. So stupid. I do need to watch that show. But anyway, you're getting set up. You kind of realize these kids are going to experience a great deal of loss. It turns out that they experience even more with the boy's first son. Which is, again, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit here. That's another thing. If you're not fully paying attention, you could kind of miss what happened there. You missed it?
Yeah, me.
The first time it's said,
with
it's
Jesse.
Yeah. He's buried out back with Jesse and Mom.
Yeah, I didn't know who Jesse was.
You don't know in that scene.
Yeah, like, because he says it, and I was like, am I supposed to know who Jesse is? And then later, when Murph says something about, I was like,
you just gotta.
Oh, so I guess he had a son.
When she says you're gonna wait for another one of your kids to die, and then there's a pause so that the audience can go, oh. no.
Yeah, so like you remember how I said earlier there were some very slight clunky things? That was one of them.
So, like kind of reading into like, well, something that kind of pertains to that a little bit. It's interesting because some of the dialogue between the characters in the beginning, in that first half hour that we're kind of touching on, one of the other lines that really stood out to me was, once you're a parent, you're the ghost of your parents. You're the ghost of your children's future. Mm-hmm. And he says that to Murph before he leaves. And then another line that follows that right up is, I can't be your ghost right now. I have to exist. They chose me. And
practically screaming it at us at all times.
Exactly. Yeah. But at the same time, it's emotionally very strong. You're like, it takes you a second to think about these things. But this whole theme with ghosts and parents and children, I mean, what's the son's name? I don't remember.
What is the son's name?
I mean, I know his kid's name, but Jesse. But
yeah,
just knowing the things that are going to affect like his son's character,
Tom.
Even though we don't.
Sorry,
Tom. Okay, so we get enough shorthand character development with Tom between various parts of the movie, but just this whole idea of like legacy and parents and children. It's some of the strongest stuff in the movie, and a lot of it is related in just these subtle bits of dialogue that you could easily look over if you're not paying attention, or if it just takes time. You just got to let it wash over you more than once. And that's it's constantly going back to this rewatchability of this movie, and it can get a little slow, but when you've seen it before and you have the background and base knowledge of all of it, it almost becomes more fun to watch it because you can finally focus. It's such a visual like masterpiece, I think. Mm. And to get past that visual point and then just sit on the words. Once again, just another check mark towards that. The writing is incredible. I don't know what.
Also, is he trolling us at this point with the whole like, I'm not your ghost. Parents are the ghosts of children's future, or whatever. The whole thing with the dead wives in all of his movies, like, is he trolling us at this point?
Like in 5 years from now, when he gets arrested for the murder of his wife, we'll all be like, well, he wrote it in reality.
Yeah, people have been asking about it a million times because like his mom didn't die like tragically when he was young. His wife is still alive, and he's like, I think he basically said, yeah, I'm not entirely sure why that keeps happening. It's like, well, that keeps happening because you keep writing.
Maybe it's a fear, and also
interesting.
He might have ultimately said that. I forget, and that would make sense. Obviously, what's like the thing that would like you fear most? It's like, oh yeah, like my wife dying, which totally rational, or well, not rational, but totally understandable, fear. Like you certainly don't want the people you love to die.
So
yeah, no, absolutely.
So starting to get more into like the meat and potatoes of this movie, we stumble upon this base.
No, we're living in a post meat and potatoes world.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of meat potato. Well, there's meat and potatoes. There's just no toilet paper.
Oh god.
Or switches.
Was that a corn souffle in that final dinner sequence?
That's what I.
That was what I meant. I didn't mean this world. I meant that world. They only have corn. There is no meat and potatoes.
Dude, I swear I was like, wait a minute. Is this family sitting down to a corn souffle with a side of corn?
100%. In very, Big Daddy style, Steve Buscemi writing down on my notebook in that moment, corn souffle.
So glad I'm not the only person who thought of that. Before Taylor, I'm gonna let you finish. Before we move on to the because that is exactly where this movie takes off. Right before that, the piece that I feel like what.
He said that's exactly where the movie takes off. I said the corn souffle.
No.
Oh my god.
No. But it's probably about the 30 minute mark. I don't know, somewhere around there. My thing with this is like the pacing. Like I said, I don't really agree with this pacing being an issue in this movie. felt that at a few points when he would normally indulge and draw it out, he actually did really nice shots that just bled perfectly into like the next portion of the movie. So it's almost feeling like these nice clips where you're moving along. And one of them was when he leaves and says goodbye to Murph. It does a clip where it shows him walking outside, getting in his truck. Murph comes out to like longingly kind of wish that she hadn't been a brat and not said goodbye to her father. And it starts the sound of the thrusters taking off. And it starts with the 5, 4, 3, and it shows him, and it's McConaughey doing his thing, which is he's phenomenal in this movie. And he's getting the tears, and you almost feel like you're watching a Lincoln commercial with a little more emotion. But
oh man, there should definitely have been like a little Lincoln badge on the front of that. That would have been beautiful.
Exactly, that would have been beautiful. But I think they saw how emotionally he can drive a car, and I think that's why they wound up. So anyway, but that scene, it hard clips with the voiceover overlapping the scene of him driving away from his daughter, and now we are in get ready for space.
Yeah,
and this is when the movie really takes off. So.
Yeah,
I really loved that scene and that hard.
It's amazing. That actually leads directly to the scene that I wanted to talk about, which is kind of our first real silly moment in space, and it's with Tars. That's when we first learn about his humor setting, right? Being at 100%, and we tone it down to 75 or whatever it is, wherever we lower it. That whole conversation is amazing, and it's like it really does make you think. The first, bringing the humor setting down, great, right? Because like let's not turn it off because we're gonna need that because it's gonna be a dark few years. So there's one. 2, the honesty setting being at 90%. Like obviously the first first watch, you have the same reaction Cooper does, right? You're like, no, robot. I would like to know what's happening. It's like, do you want to know? And then the discretion setting was really good too. They don't lean into the discretion setting too much, but I think there's a reason that they bring up that he has one is some of the other choices that he makes. That he makes, like the robot does.
Or how about the utter lack of discretion that Case has when he decides, hey, you guys are having a really important conversation. By the way, here's a message about your dad dying. Like, discretion.
No, I actually...
Can we do that at a less important time?
I actually think... Well, there's 2 reasons behind that one. First one is that the message was important to the person. So, like, it seemed like maybe the discretion setting there was like almost like a humanity setting, right? Of like, you would probably want to know this information as soon as I have it.
No. That's the empathy setting. The empathy setting is entirely different than the discretion setting. The discretion setting should have said, they're in the middle of really important space stuff, really important science stuff.
Well,
let's wait to tell them about the dead dad. Now, from a plot perspective, totally understand it's super important to just fling the table up in the air. No. Hang
on. You're talking. Actually, it makes even more sense now that you say that, because if it analyzes the message, it knows that there's information about their mission that they don't have. So it has to give it to them right now while they're making plans.
I guess so, but the plans at that point, Case doesn't know that Matt Damon is going to betray them. So Case could have just said, well, they're here. Time is relatively normal on this planet. There's no rush. What's the difference between me giving them this message an hour from now? Like, it's different than if they were on the first planet where an hour is 7 years or whatever the hell it is.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, realistically, it was just to push the plot forward, but it's excusable.
The discretion setting, I'm calling bullshit on the discretion setting.
I will. I like that we don't really dive too much into a trust setting, but the fact that Tars disables the auto dock feature of the ship, really great.
These characters, these robotic characters are amazing, and they're huge parts of the movie. I mean, huge.
Oh yeah. Well, so when we were getting up into the ship, I was thinking, like, the first time it takes off, and like, you know, the characters are starting to communicate a little bit more, like, in their element in the ship. I was thinking to myself, what awards was this movie up for? Turns out not enough. That's one that really pissed me off. No nod for writing or picture, which really bothered me.
That's sad.
McConaughey not up for Best Actor for this one, though it was one of his better performances of the ones that he was up for that year, even, which is crazy.
Which, question, what one was he up for, do you know?
I believe he was up for Dallas Buyers Club that year, which,
wow.
again...
Okay,
Was that the same year?
He put in some work. Okay,
yeah.
a quick one. Have either of you seen the movie Mud?
No, but that was the reason why, from what I understand, Christopher Nolan wanted him for this role, right?
Yep. So that movie, hey, I'd love to be on for a McConaughey series. That movie, I love that movie, and that exactly what you said. That he was. I just wanted to say he was up for because of that movie. And I would highly recommend a watch.
I'll have to check that out because I really do. I think he's tremendous in this movie. So I was thinking. Okay, first off, it's just an atrocity that this movie wasn't up for more. Second, I was like, McConaughey should have totally been up for Best Actor. There should also have been a supporting actor nominee for Bill Irwin as Tars. 100%. I think. No.
I don't know if I support that.
What about this?
I would have gone with Chastain for supporting actress.
I'm not there for the nominee. I do think that she was very good. There wasn't enough for me to go like that award for it.
Well, that's why she was supporting actress.
So a little backup to maybe sway you. I would highly recommend that you check out what Bill Irwin?
Yeah.
What's his name? Bill Irwin. I highly check it out. Okay, so these TARS creatures on the movie, that's a real thing.
I know.
that's a damn near 200-pound stainless steel aluminum object walking around with this dude wearing a gray leotard behind it. I'm not even kidding. It's
Sorry,
incredible.
I was really confused because at first I thought you meant like the actual technology. I was like, no.
No, yeah,
Bill
he
Irwin
like
is
puppeteered
TARS
it,
in a
and then they had to
leotard.
like edit
You
it
saw
out.
it wrong.
Yeah.
No, the lengths that they went to, it's incredible. Like both Tars and Case were both physical props, puppeted by Bill Irwin.
That's
and
so
they were
cool.
Literally, the suit that Nolan decided on, they did many renderings of different materials they'd be made of. They take a huge influence from like the monoliths from Space Odyssey, which you could probably tell. He wanted them to be as like far from human as possible, just because he didn't want that to be part of their character. He wanted you to understand they are machines. They were built for the military. There's a passing line in the movie where McConaughey says when he first gets taken in, when he finds the NASA location, he sits there and he's like, how did you get these? These are retired military, versions of a robot. They're not trustworthy or whatever. He even says it in that scene. That's another little passing piece. But Nolan decided he loved the look of what was it?
Bill Irwin.
Stainless steel.
Oh.
As opposed to any other lighter material that they could have possibly made these things out of. So this poor dude and a stuntman who helped him in portions of the movie are standing right behind the robot in like 90% of the scenes, which that alone, like anytime, and this is why Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, going back to that, how I doubled up, that's why it's my favorite film, because when you rely on a practical effect and you do it well and you take the time to do it well, it's always going to carry more weight than CGI.
Yeah, for sure.
Every time.
It was made of stainless steel, so it's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. I just want to say shout out to Tars and Case.
Well, you know what? Maybe
and Bill Irwin.
Maybe even more for a reason for other actors to be up for nominations for this if they had to act in a room where that was happening and pull it off.
Have you ever seen the behind the scenes like screenshots or video clips of Sean Gunn playing Rocket Raccoon?
Yes.
And,
Oh my God, so good.
And he's like crouched out. He's walking with the rest of them.
It's ridiculous. He's
how do they not laugh?
Any sense to me in those things. He's still way bigger. So what was the point of that?
I don't know.
Mental games.
I do love ultimately though. After all that said and done, that Cooper and Tars become like best friends through time and space. Yep. And like he like fixes him, he's tinkering on him, and he's got like a little buddy to hang out with him in his like retirement on this space station. I don't know why I thought that was kind of adorable.
Yeah, it was. It was really sweet. It was a very R2-D2 Skywalker thing going on there.
I've never felt more emotionally attached to a block in my life.
When the I know we're jumping all over the place, but like when the little ship explodes because what's the other one's name? I can't think of his name. When Kip explodes, and I was like, immediate reaction. Oh no, there was a human being actor in that ship, and I was more concerned about Tars.
Yep.
Getting back to like bringing full circle, like what I was talking about with David Gyasi, like getting killed. So like I was like, you know what? I pegged you for death immediately when you got seasick on the space sick on the ship. I was like, you lasted way longer than I expected, and in like movie years, like you lasted 20-something years, which super depressing that you were on that space station entirely alone for 23 years. But like, good for you for lasting so long into the movie. I was sure you were going to die nearly as quickly, if not quicker, than
well, especially because it was two things, right? That really pointed to the fact that he was going to die. One was him puking when they take off, and two was he's the guy that folds the piece of paper in half in this movie, and that guy always dies.
You know, it's funny. My cousin Mike. Hey, Mike. My cousin Mike texted me and he goes, Anthony, like I think he both agreed and disagreed with you about. He said like, oh, like I think he overstated a little bit how often people do that explanation. They did rip it off directly from Event Horizon. And I was like,
yep.
You do realize like that's the science of the thing, right? Like that they're both ripping it off from like theoretical astrophysics, right. Like. That's like a real, well, not actually real because we can't prove that it exists, but it's like a real thing that has been like hypothesized through science, and like they're taking that from astrophysicists hypothesizing on how we might bridge the gap between our relative inability to create fuels and engines that could take us to places in a efficient from a time and like cost perspective, resource perspective. Like, a wormhole is a thing that if it could be created or discovered, if it was naturally occurring or whatever, that is one of the very few ways we could transcend the bounds of physical space relativity as we know it.
Yeah. And I just like that they took it a step further and he was using that explanation to show him why it's a sphere. He went
and also this time he didn't do it on porn.
It wasn't porn. That's true. That helped. But 2 movies in a row. Okay. What were you going to say, Caleb?
So I got to give a little bit of, even more credit to Nolan. Hold on, I totally lost my... We're going to have to cut that out. I totally lost my train of thought.
That's right.
Shit.
Well, where...
Haha.
So there's a great line.
So anyway, go ahead.
There's a great line when they wake up from the cry. I think it's when they wake up from cryo sleep, and Cooper's got his headphones in. He's listening to the like birds chirping and like all that. And you just said his name, David Gassi. What's his name in the movie? Romley is starting to lose it, right? He's like, I see, it's really getting to me, man. The fact that there's like, a couple of like this like an inch of aluminum and then nothing for thousands of miles. And in that scene, Cooper goes, he has this line: "Some of the finest soloist yachtsmen don't know how to swim." And I stopped paying attention to the movie and I started thinking, is that true? I was like, this is a ridiculous statement, but that's a terrifying
Another great line.
You know what it is? I think that goes back to... There's something, and I guess this is another like Nolan trick, there's something about understatement by one character trying to like encourage another one. Because I immediately thought of Michael Caine in The Prestige trying to console Robert Angiers about his wife drowning and saying, oh, I once talked to a sailor who told me that, who he had drowned and he was unconscious, he was clinically dead for several minutes before he was revived. And I asked him what it was like, and he says, it was like going home. Mm-hmm. And then we find out later in that movie that he was lying, and he said it was the most painful thing that he ever experienced, right? Yep. Like, there's something to that, I think, of the understatement. I would be inclined to believe that that was not true, what he told him.
Yeah, that's fair. I do. It did make me write the note down, not even to bring up on the show, but just to like look into that. Is this a thing? Because that seems ridiculous and very easily rectifiable.
Yeah, that line totally caught my attention as well. And I think when you think about that line, I think any part of anyone who goes to space has to give up on the what ifs and only focus on what they are in control of, because space is such an uncontrollable environment to be in and choose to be in. And I think that line goes to show there's something in the psyche of these people who go to space and do these incredible things where they are not thinking about what can happen, because that will drive you nuts. They are solely thinking about what I will do, the choices I will make, the protocols I know how to follow. And I think that's why that little line, another line that just literally, it could just go away. Because the next thing you see is him give him the headphones and he gives him a little taste of home with those grasshoppers. Yeah, and you think to yourself, I'm in a sterile environment. There's barely gravity at times. I'm spinning in a circle, which at times seeing that little reference of like what's up and what's down, which is really nothing in space, I even get a little nauseated watching it. If I'm watching on a big screen, I'm not even gonna lie, I find it hard to watch. But yeah, like
when they first fired up the ring, I got a little whoa.
Yep, for sure.
Yep. But that's just, again, the writing in this movie is incredible. Like, just to, I'll try not to say it 10 more times, but that's another throwaway line.
You mean it.
That goes to show.
You mean it. It's really funny. So we get to the first, is it the first planet, the water planet, and
Yes.
The whole concept of
Miller.
Yeah,
Miller's planet.
The concept of like time is gonna move much faster for those back home while they're down there. The whole gravitational thing, great, interesting concept. Cool to explore in a movie. Done. There's a little bit. It's done a little bit poorly. I thought, like, every time that I watched it, except for this time. So, and the reason being is they explain to you that 1 hour, 7 years, right? When they get back, it's been 21 years. That implies that they were down there for 3 hours, but they're not. Like it's very, it seems like the length of a conversation, and that is just your perception of what's going on. And that's what there was a couple things that I was trying to take note of this time around. One was, we only are glimpsing into like the conversation that they have when the wave hits. They get stuck there for a bit while they have to, like, you don't know how long they're actually sitting there, but it would not make for a compelling movie to watch them sit there and wait for like the engines to be ready to go. So you just have to take that with a grain of salt, that time has passed, but you're perceiving it a certain way. And I think that's...
Well, you also have to remember, he says to him, how long? And he says 45 minutes.
How long what? Oh, how long? Yeah, how long for the engines to be ready?
He says 45 minutes.
Yep.
So even though, yes, we don't see them sitting there for 45 minutes, we know that it has to be roughly 45 minutes.
Right, and there's 2 other hours that aren't accounted for, is really my point, though.
Well, you also have to remember the amount of time it took them
to get there,
off.
Yeah, for sure. And but that's what I'm saying, is like, you don't see a lot of that. And the first couple of times I watched it, I just thought that it was kind of an oversight. But going back into it this time around, it's just what they're really willing to spend time on, because there's a lot of movie here. I know it's long, but every minute of it counts. So like, they can't obviously stretch that out any further. So you kind of just have to. And then I thought, like, oh, it's kind of fun to think of it as your perception of time, because perception of time is a big deal in this movie, right? So in this moment, it actually has more gravity that you only see them on the planet for like maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes at like the whole sequence, and then coming out of it being 21 years later or 27 years later, however long it is actually, it has more weight because they made it so quick on screen.
Well, there was also something really powerful in just the shocking, like, smack you in the face revelation of what happened. Like, because you're so focused on, oh god, everything's wrong, waves that are, miles high, someone dies, they barely get off the planet, 23 years passing, and it can be easy, I think, to lose sight of, and I'm glad I caught it in my first, because I don't think I would have necessarily thought about it. Like, what went wrong in their process, right? Because they admitted when they were heading there, oh, it's been 3 years, but the thing is told over every time. Like, we haven't heard anything specific from him, but, like, the beacon is working, this and that, and it's like, she says it when, like, right when it's over, it's like, oh my god, she literally died minutes before we got there.
Yep.
When you consider
Heavy.
what passage of time is like, we just missed her. And
Also,
we went there because we were so sure, oh, there's water, it's a temperate planet, there's oxygen, like everything seemed like it could have been okay other than the time dilation thing. And it's like, oh, we were getting back to think, because, like, you remember there was some question of like the veracity of the signals they were getting from the other planets, right? It's like, fuck, how, and McConaughey, and I don't remember if it was right in that scene or if it was a little bit later, he just cuts right to the quick of it. Fuck, we're not prepared for this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, holy shit, yeah, like as much time as they spent thinking about this, as much math and science and these brilliant minds, it's like, and even, like, they said, we know it's gonna, every hour is 7 minutes, or 7 years. Like, we know the second we get in there, it's boom, no hello, no goodbye, no chit chat, it's boom, grab the stuff, go. Because 7 years will be past, like, best case, you know, maybe it'll be 10 years, maybe it'll be 12 years, because, you know, it takes us a minute to get everything on the ship and everything, right? Like, and it's like, holy shit, the level of that failure is mind-boggling, and for something so simple as, like, rounding error, like mathematical error, like, it reminded me of, we were just talking about this pretty recently with me and my dad. Was it the Challenger, the one that exploded? Was it in the 80s, I think? Mm-hmm. You know, that came down to just a rounding error. That there was a conversion from, I don't remember if it was metric to English or English to metric system, and they were just off by a couple of tenths of a decimal point. You know what I mean? And the O-rings out. You have to keep the liquid fuel super cold to keep it liquid.
Right.
And right before takeoff, and the temperature change expansion of the O-ring, because they were off by just a little bit in the conversion from one system to the other, they were off by this little bit, that whole thing blew up. They lost, how many people died, lost billions of dollars on such a simple little thing. They lost 20 years because they just didn't think of what it really means for that passage of time. They knew 1 hour or 7 years. They've heard 3 years worth of schedule. How long does that mean that person's been on the planet for? That person's been on the planet for 15 minutes?
They
20
didn't
minutes?
even cross their mind going into it.
Didn't cross their mind, and it's a colossal, ridiculous, epic failure.
And sets them back an entire astronaut.
Yeah. Well, how about the delivery of that message to poor Romley, who's like, Doyle, and Cooper's like, it just shakes his head and walks away.
Yeah,
I was like, dude,
no bueno.
This guy's been alone for 21 years. Just give him, like,
Cooper's
a word.
Cooper's a
But
cold-hearted
another thing,
bitch,
like,
if
you know,
haven't
it's
noticed.
all perspective. It's all perspective, right? Because, like, yeah, we lost him, like, 90 minutes ago, and he's like, I lost him 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Or you're telling me that I lost him 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, fuck.
So this part of the movie is, number one, my worst fucking nightmare. I've had nightmares where a wave that size is about to swallow me up, and I don't like open water to begin with.
Oh, boy.
So this scene... This
is the first time you've told me about the wave dream, but between your fear of whales and your fear of waves...
Just in case you guys are wondering, I do have a major fear of whales, and I'm not sure if it's because I watched Free Willy at a really, really young age or not. And that scene when the lightning flashes and he appears behind the aquarium screen. I'm not sure what it was, but...
No, I'm with you.
But
where do you stand on...
I would say, I now understand why you won't come to the beach with us.
Yes, that's exactly why, Al. Just stick with that reason.
The waves, the whales, and your incredibly pale skin all adds up to pain.
Yes, I'm very pale. I'm not tall, dark, and handsome. I'm short, pale, and ugly. Just in case anyone's wondering. So This scene, I have made a note. It's not my favorite scene. It's powerful. I think the environment is clever. I think it adds stakes to the movie. It adds a smallness to the characters, which I meant to talk on the cinematography. I'm not going to get way into it, but a scene that we've already skipped. When they're on their way to Saturn, or when they're passing Saturn, there's a quick shot where there's a lot of scenes in this movie that are meant to, and very effectively, give us the feeling that we are small. Mm-hmm. We are very small. And this world is far bigger than anything we build on our own planet. I mean, you can sit up and look at a skyscraper that looks like it's bending over you in New York City and get that feeling. But there's nothing like outside this world. When you're outside this world, it's a different world. And, it's not to be redundant. But, but when you see, there's a shot when they're passing Saturn where it's legit, even in 4K, it probably takes up 2 pixels of your screen. And that's the spaceship and this dark black mass with just the little highlight of the ring of Saturn that you can tell that it's Saturn. That scene, that shot is so powerful. And when you're on this planet, you feel that as well, because with the size of the waves. But the one thing I will ding this movie, and it takes away from this scene, Tars getting into his mobile mode and hauling ass and saving Anne. That's cool. That's not where I'm going to ding it.
Go Gadget Starfish.
But my note says...
I love the pinwheel.
My note...
Like,
No. So, Tars is... It's fine. My note says, Doyle barely tried to live.
Yeah. No, he didn't, he didn't try at all.
The dude literally... Like, dude, get in the fucking ship. The dude literally says, okay, go. And if you rewatch the scene, he's like, oh, I got time. Get in the ship. He literally tells Anne... Well, not Anne. What's her name in the movie? Shit. Anne Hathaway's
you kept calling
character.
her that, and I was like, wait.
Anne Hathaway's character. I'm sorry. He literally is like, get in the ship, as if he's being a gentleman and letting a girl into a cab first. Like, dude, you're about to get crushed by a 750-foot wave. Get in the freaking ship. So as soon as they get in, I lose all my feelings for that guy. I'm like, you know what? He's an idiot.
No, I'm with you.
There's a few things going on there.
And that bothered me.
There's his confusion as to how did we get this so wrong. I would be a little confused if the entire planet looks like water, and yet the ground is like 8 inches below the water everywhere. Because the whole time they were like just casually like running around. I'm like, someone's gonna like slip and fall off into the water.
I was also wondering, how does the ship know to put out its landing pads? It's water.
I just
it's not a pontoon
that
boat.
one as like maybe it can float and it was just the landing gear.
Okay.
That's
because
I assume
we'll go
if you have a
because
ship
future.
like that, you can probably do advanced like radar
Sure.
like scanning of it.
A depth finder.
Oh, there's solid ground. 12 inches below the surface of the water. We're safe here.
Doyle's an idiot. That's all I have to say.
Well, no. So at first I was like, okay, yeah. So like he's looking around. So there's a shock and awe, right? Of what the fuck happened here? We're here. There's no ship that's supposed to be here. That we figured like she's been here for 3 years. She's gonna have a pod set up and this and that. And there's nothing. She's missing. This thing is a wreck under the water. Oh god, the mountains aren't mountains. That's water. Which that's got to be quite a revelation, right? But you guys are forgetting that the gravity there was 120% of what it is here. So when you said he barely tried to live, like, and they set it up before everything went to shit. The two of them are like trudging, like as if they're carrying another person on their back.
Which also goes to lend.
There's no excuse the barely tried to live thing because he was at the ship for a good 3 minutes before Tars gets there with Dr. Brand. Like, just get on. Just get on the ship.
I will agree with that part of it.
Also, Tars is a fucking yoked beast. Because that dude should make that the title of the podcast. Tars is a yoked beast. He literally hauls monolithic robot ass to that ship.
Now, was that scene also puppeteered? Because I would love to see that.
So actually, a portion of it was you basically see two men in that are going to be digitally erased, they toss the chunk of metal of the ship wreckage into the water that he lifts up and then lets go after he saves her.
Oh, cool.
And then they do this crazy shot where they took like a double that was probably a third of the size of Tar's, and they just spin it on a rotator on like a little ATV vehicle that's been suited up for water travel, and they take a shot of him just spinning through the water. It's wild.
That's awesome.
It's incredible.
That's all. But this was the first time I also like really zoned in on how dumb he was, Doyle, and how he should where I was like when that scene as they're flying away, you see him floating in the water. It's like it's meant for you to remember, like we just lost somebody, feel a little bit bad about it. And I was like, nah, I don't though. It's fine.
Well, unfortunately, I think he's the victim of poor editing.
Doyle does not rule in this movie. Doyle does not rule.
I think he's just a victim of poor editing, because if they just had him slowly trudging through the water and never make it to the ship, it's just
fine.
like, oh man, that really sucks. The fact that he makes it to the ship and then just can't physically get into it makes it look way worse than it is. I think it's just poor.
Is Doyle paying you?
No, he's dead.
All right. So that's, well, yeah.
No, you're fine.
Go ahead.
So we lose Doyle. Now we're moving on. We get to
yes.
we have to make We have to make the hard call, right? We have to decide between the two planets, the one that is close.
Well, before that though is when they get the messages from the past 20 years.
Oh God.
Ooh, don't skip that.
Oh God.
We can't take too long, but because we're how long you guys normally run? We're the 3-hour mark.
That scene is just
you're gonna cut me out
insane.
completely.
And just
anyway.
like
it's fine.
Him, McConaughey just the way that he's breaking down in that scene is, it's got to get you every time. Yeah,
that's the scene I was talking about earlier, where they finally they pull the arm away, and it's like, it's up to you if you want to come and meet them and what's going on here. Because if that sequence can't get to you, he's watching his two children grow up from preteen, teen to they're full-blown adults. One of them is married with kids. One of them died. Mm-hmm. The other one is, she can't let go of the pain for 20 years. And for him, it's like, well, I was just there I don't know, a couple months ago. You know what I mean? And it's like, fuck, the fact that she isn't willing to meet me halfway for 20 years, I couldn't, and knowing his own complicity in that, because he couldn't explain it to her well enough, because no fault of his own, he's on that planet for 20 years, he can't have sent her any messages in that time, you know what I mean? And she probably feels even more abandonment at that point, where it's like, it's nice to have the luxury of, hey, Dad sent me a message, but fuck him, I'm not going to listen to it. Fuck him, I'm not going to send it back. To now not get those messages, it's one of two things. Wow, he really doesn't care about me, or he's dead.
Right.
And neither of those outcomes is really great, right?
God, just the concept of watching those people grow and age through through a glass window, and you're just pounding on the window trying to communicate with them, and you can't. It's heartbreaking.
Through 8 total messages.
I don't know if this was his choice or it could have been Nolan's direction, but Casey Affleck, I like him. I don't want to get too into the Affleck talk again, but I feel like we gave them enough enough audio time for what they do. But I mean, I haven't seen too many, but the few Casey Affleck movies I've seen, he's not the best actor in the world, but I feel like he does him very well, and I like him. In this movie, I think it's perfect because we don't get a lot of time with him. He's supposed to have grown up a little bit disconnected from his father, but yet always kind of looked up to his father a little. Well, he didn't have the harsh break with his father the way Murph did, because he was at that age where, being with my dad all the time is not that cool. I kind of want a car. I want some freedom. And his dad gave him a car. That's all he knows. And his dad's a badass that's going to save the world. So, for all I know, his character reasoning, that's perfectly fine. But the scene with him, this is where for the first time in the movie, I get some, I'm fighting back some emotion. And yes. And, I'm not a macho guy. I'm not, but I'm not a crier. I don't get I'm more likely to to break down into emotion if I'm angry than if I'm sad. I don't get emotional. So if a movie makes me feel that, it's got me. And this is the first scene when, for as many, if a scene has turned into a GIF or a meme and it can still make me borderline cry, it's fucking good. Yeah. That's a good scene. And McConaughey's performance mixed with just really soaking this in and thinking, when I'm a father, can I watch my child, like you said, Ant, grow up behind a digital screen? Like, it's incredible to watch. And then at the end of the scene, when Jessica Chastain's character comes on and says, her little bit, and then just clips out, and he reaches towards the screen and touches that screen for a second, like, hold on. Like, it doesn't make sense. This dude's an astronaut. Yeah. He's smart. He understands how this works, but he has to physically touch that screen. Like, don't leave. That's powerful. Yeah. And these are the little things that, like, just crush it in this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Love that scene.
Her message, like, the whole thing about, like, do you know what? Like, it's my birthday, and it's an important year. You know what it was? It was actually like it's a classic delivery of, like, hey, you son of a bitch. I didn't expect that in this movie, but
every time me and Al say hi to each other.
Pretty much.
You're going to take kills for money.
Oh, man. All right, so we are so that's
where are we at?
That's the roughest scene probably in the movie. Then we're going to Matt Damon's planet, and
well, you said it sounded like you wanted to talk about the decision.
Oh yeah, so we have to make the tough decision of which planet to go to, right?
Man or Edmonds.
And it's what I love about it is it's a difficult conversation to have. With the data they had, they made the right choice. It's just the wrong one, and that's because they touch on the whole point of, like, what Dr. Brand is trying.
Let's allow Ronald McDonald from Always Sunny to take this one. Science is a liar.
What's funny about it, though, what's actually really interesting, and it holds a lot more weight later on, is Dr. Brand is making this statement about love and this feeling, and it means something. It doesn't mean nothing, but it's not what we consider science, right? But later on, you find out that it is relevant in that way, and it should have factored into
quantifiable.
Yeah, and like that is so. In that moment, you understand the decision. It's the logical thing to do, and you are understanding it with our current space and time as human beings in this world right now in this year. It makes sense. Like, yeah, they made the right decision, and then thinking about how they evolve within the movie to realize, or at least Cooper has to realize that it actually would have meant a little bit more, especially when he's able to leverage those emotions to communicate through time and space later on. It's big. There's a lot to unpack in that one sequence.
Also, imagine saying Christopher Nolan is a cold, emotionless son of a bitch. In which the movie
shots fired
climax is about love saving the entire human race.
Okay. I will
imagine saying that.
You have points. You have points here.
Did anyone see this movie who has said those things?
But this is what makes this movie stand out among the Nolan filmology. Filmology, it's a new word.
He's an expert in namiology.
Quarantine. Listen, there's no rules. This is the final frontier, boys. We're on quarantine right now. For all you know, these words do exist.
No one can hear us scream.
But this is why I feel this movie is strong, because if you watch a director's movies and you get an idea for the tone and the tendencies of that director, if they derive from that and hit you harder in certain parts of the way they do something, it stands out to you more. That's why I would give this movie 9 out of 10, because in these moments when we're talking about the subject of love transcending death, I mean, it's a little cheesy, but not in the way this movie does it. I mean, the way that Anne Hathaway says it, she just kind of breaks it down and she asks the question, we love people after they die.
Mm-hmm.
how many emotions do you feel towards someone after they're dead? I mean, love is the number one emotion. Most people, why do people kill people? Because they hate them. And why do they kill them? Because they want them dead. After they're dead, they don't hate them anymore. They feel, I'm above you, I killed you. Well, if that's a certain logic you have, if you're willing to go that route. But when it comes to love someone after they're dead, I mean, that is another part of this movie where following that Matthew McConaughey scene of seeing him literally in like real time watch the time lapse of his children's life, it just added so much more like levity to this scene. And I was really just like, that is so true. Like, Nolan is making these giant statements in the subtlest of ways. That scene's not even anything epic. The setting is not epic. It's literally Anne Hathaway with her legs crossed, talking in like the most surgical way. But she's saying these things that make you think. And like, I don't see that in all of Nolan's movies. I get the brain matter. I don't get the heart matter. I'm not feeling it in my heart. This movie makes me feel it in my heart. And that's and that's just another part that really does it. Like,
yeah,
crazy.
No, that's well said. So, you know, again, they decide to make this decision based off of their current logic and how they.
Well, hang on one second. While we're on that topic specifically about the decision, so they set up that earlier, right? When he wants to know about the scientists, he wants to know about the planets, and he asks Brand, Dr. Mann, he's the best of us. You know what I mean? He's the one why we're all out here. Dr. Who was on the first planet? The one who died in the wave? I forgot.
Miller?
Okay, Dr. Miller. Dr. Miller, you know, blah, blah, blah. Dr. Edmonds. He's good. And so he immediately knows there's something up there. And so then he asks Tars, and I think that's when Tars mentions the discretion setting. And maybe the trust setting, or honesty setting.
Is that 90%?
The discretion
I also have a discretion setting.
Yeah. Which is a hint, but a pretty vague one, especially when you're talking about the nuance of human emotion through the lens of an analytical science machine. So for him in that moment to not, when they're gonna have the vote, and he's telling like Romilly, before we vote, let's talk about this Edmonds thing. He doesn't say, Brand, can we discuss? He says, Brand, tell him. As if he has 100% fact behind him that she's like desperately, madly, and like it's not like she's been raving for the last 20 years on the spaceship. Dr. Edmonds this, Dr. Edmonds that. You know what I mean? Like, two very brief, very vague conversations, and he just knows for a fact she's.
I think there's a little bit more to that in he's. It's an accusation, but he's mad at her in that scene.
Sure, rightfully so, because she did result in
right. So I think he was trying to dig, and
yes, it was just odd the tact that he chose in that moment. Like, you're right, he's letting his rage at her for wasting 20 years, for wasting Doyle's life, and then not even getting.
You might say he's raging against the dying of the light.
So yes, there is something to that rage like boiling over for sure. But I just found it odd that he had this absolute certitude that they were in love, not just a strong suspicion. It just came out a little odd. I mean, the sum total would have been the same thing. It affects the image of that scene.
Yeah,
you know,
that's fair.
Where it's presented as fact as opposed to accusation.
That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but the poem that is used throughout this movie, I think it's used a little too much. However, it is the words, once again, writing wise, I know that he did not write this poem. It was written by a poet named Dylan Thomas, and it was published in 1951. Written in 1947, I think. But just those first three lines, do not go gentle into the good night, old age should burn and rave at close of day, rage, rage against the dying of the light. And we hear it multiple times. And on the soundtrack, I'd highly recommend anyone listen to the final track on that soundtrack, because it is the actors themselves reading all, I think it's, I don't know, maybe six verses of the poem. But those words alone, and I don't know personally if it's just because of the movie's tone itself and how much I like what it's saying, but thinking about those words, this movie deals with life and death, and this movie deals with time. And that poem, I don't know how he came across it. I don't know how it got tied into this movie. I just think it's extremely powerful.
That's a very famous poem that's been used in a lot of different...
Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know exactly what led Nolan to making that. I mean, it's literally said it's said more than 3 times, probably, that initial portion, or at least 3 times in the movie. I think it was a little overused.
Well, it was the way that Professor Brand signed off his messages to all of them, but specifically to his daughter at least once a year or whatever. And because Mann was a disciple of Professor Brand, he brings it up as well.
Yeah.
It is used whenever someone is going to such extremes that it may result in their death, or when you're commenting on someone who put up a fight and maybe doesn't make it or whatever, right? And in this case, you know, in the multiple levels of them going where no man has gone before, right? Or going boldly where no man has gone before. And in addition to that, they are literally raging against the dying of humanity, right? Again, this is another thing that works on multiple different levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to touch on the poem a little bit because I didn't know when it would come up, but I will give it a little tick on the easy, because it's definitely used a little too much, especially Michael Caine.
I actually kind of liked it. Maybe you don't need to read the whole several lines or whatever at every time, but I actually kind of liked that repetition. I thought that it kind of cuts to, like I said, since it works on multiple different levels, I think that it works as a motif of this throughout this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So now we're on Matt Damon. Which is all I could think of as he came out of that Ziploc bag.
Such a little turd in this movie he is. It's just really, it really grinds my gears.
Let's go from there. And I also wrote weird Martian similarity to be in 2 movies like this. Kind of makes me
I completely
feel
forgot
weird.
he was in this.
Yeah, definitely. You cross some wires when you think about scenes from the 2 different movies, for sure.
Yeah, talking about I almost ran out of supplies and wasn't able to survive here. Yeah, it's just interesting.
Someone's helmet cracked.
Oh my god, that scene. No, I was like, stop it.
Yeah, just by
not only that, as he's going, I'm like, wouldn't you maybe pull your head away?
Yeah,
because he hits him a good 8 times before it cracks.
No, it's a good question. There's not a good answer to it, though. Unfortunately, the answer. It's
important.
No.
It's an important conversation.
You wouldn't, because we need to crack your helmet for the sake of the plot. But that, really, I've hated Matt Damon on purpose, right? Like, he makes you hate him in certain things. And it's not just I like Matt Damon.
Best description of hate I've ever heard.
I've hated him because he made me hate him multiple times. But this one,
wait a minute, is this Jimmy Kimmel? Are we talking about Jimmy Kimmel?
In this particular one, though, when he's got Coop on the ground with gasping for air, and he's like, "Yeah, man, that sucks. That sucks. You see your kids? I can't even look at you. I'm just I want to break his face in that scene so bad.
What a weird his whole plan and thought process. I thought I was going to come out here and watch you die, but I don't think I can now. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, man?
Nuts.
If you're going to go kill someone, fine. What sort of psychopath are you? There's a big difference between I believe that I need to kill you for the sake of humanity and I'm gonna watch you die, man. There's a big gap between those 2 things.
Well, we don't. It's funny. It's fairly quick the time that we, as far as pacing goes, like we're not on that planet for too long, but so much happens in that span of time from waking him up.
This is
go on.
This is my least favorite part of the movie. This section is the weakest part.
I agree that I'm with you on that, though I will say it leads to probably my favorite scene in the movie, which is when he poorly docks to the space station and we have him talking and mid-sentence gets ripped out and then they cut all sound in the movie. When you have to use it sparingly, but when you use that effect just right, it's good.
It's like that scene. It's like the scene in The Last Jedi, right? When
I think we could have used a
jump to
Wilhelm.
hyperspace.
We could have used a
and
Wilhelm
it just like
scream.
totally shuts off, and then and it's like holy shit.
No, it's powerful
It's
for
intense.
sure. Another thing to just kind of like tick on a pro to this movie, and if you haven't seen it, a high recommend, is just the sound design to this movie is bar none. It's incredible. And soundtrack aside, because most Nolan movies have a pretty good soundtrack. I mean, you were talking about Hans Zimmer here for a majority. Hans, the sound design's amazing, and that, like you said, like that dramatic just cut, you're done. It's like it not only adds the drama to space, because that is space, but it adds drama to the scenes where you're being kind of like things are hitting a crescendo and then just dropping out, and it's kind of following the emotion of the particular scene.
It's intense. I think it's sound and visuals are two things that it definitely was up for an Academy Award. I don't know if I think it might have won one of them. I'm not sure which one though. But
I don't remember.
It does. It's intense. God, just the friggin' soundtrack of this movie. Ugh.
Incredible.
Well, that's really the only scene too. Like, there's a couple scenes where it's like, oh, this is like there's stuff going on here, but that's really the one scene where they're trying to dock by matching the spinning, of the thing, and then it's a hope and a prayer. No one should have ever tried to do that, right? But what choice do they really have? That's the one scene where it's like really, your heart starts to beat out of your chest. It's like the music, like, it's picking up speed, crescendos, and it's like, and then they just sit there and linger.
Yep.
On it for another second or two, where it's like going on, like it's not like crescendo success and now.
Yep. And
I felt like that was kind of like a practice run for some of the stuff that happened in Dunkirk. You know what I mean? Where like you build up and it's like like they keep ratcheting it up, and actually, was it? I think it might have been when they were on the water planet where they were so worried about the passage of time. They actually started playing around with the heartbeat sound too, or the clock ticking sound, similar to like in Dunkirk as well, because time was literally of the essence there.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the time is constantly throughout this movie, between the score and even just the physical appearance of certain not props, but certain set pieces, like from the outside, the space station is actually, it's literally like a clock face. It's literally like a watch face. If you look at it,
Yeah,
it's got markers on it, and it's also got a portion. They have the logo patched on their suits. It's literally has it's like pointing. I don't know if the time's significant, but it's got a long arm. Like one of the hallways on the space station goes directly from center out to the side of the space station.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's like, when you're thinking about it, like you're watching these scenes, another thing to add to the pile of stuff to catch on a sixth viewing.
Yeah.
When they're spinning, trying to dock, think about it. Time is of the essence, but it's flying by. The faster the dial rotates, the more is at stake. And that's just another little blip of Nolan. Just
that scene of the ship spinning and the pod spinning, and then when they line up and like the abruptness of them being in line, and basically they stop it and the background spins instead. Like that messes with my head every time. It's so good. It's a great effect.
Yeah.
Man. So from there on, we're going spelunking in black holes.
Okay.
Right?
So now we're at Event Horizon.
Yes, not to be confused with the garbage movie that we watched last week.
So Cooper pulls a rogue move and splits off. from the character I've been calling Anne by her first real name.
Dr. Brand.
First time I saw this scene, I was utterly mind blown. Between the visual effects and just putting myself in Cooper's place, this struck big time and paid off big time.
I love the way that he's talking himself through it, like almost like he's like leaving a recording, but I really feel like it's just for his own sanity. The way that he's just recording everything that's happening around him. Instruments are not working anymore. It's black. It's all black. And then that sound of him breathing, but the like reverberation,
yes.
like I was like, oh god,
yes.
that's so good.
Incredible.
I also wonder if there's something to him narrating it out loud, if that had to do with him, like you said, it's kind of a sanity check, but it's also, he's still in contact with Tars there, so I wonder if it's one of those things where it's like, hey buddy, you want to like check my work? Like, does this make sense? Or should I not do this?
Right. Well, when the thing says eject, I'm like, no. Like, I mean, I know, like, all bets are off at this point, but that seems way more dangerous than being in here.
Well, I figured he was going to go into the black hole, right? But when they set up the whole plan, it's like, oh yeah, we're going to eject Tars. And she's like, you can't do that. And he's like, I mean, like, for many reasons, we don't have a choice. But the audacity for him to follow it up and be like, and also...
Oh no.
Yeah, he's like, see you on the flip side, buddy.
His ship
She's like,
is
what?
In there and he ejects out of his ship. His body.
Well,
that's the one that I was like,
Yeah. No, and the way that they shoot, like, the cinematography, I mean, we really haven't touched on it too much, but the cinematography, once again, the choices that he makes are so powerful. Like, you could have shown this in a variety of ways. You could have shown him leaving, like, we could have had a cockpit view of him being ejected and turning into a dot, which would give us a feeling of like, oh my god, like, safe place, not safe place. You know what I mean? Like, safe and close, small and distant. But he chooses to stay with Cooper.
Yeah.
He chooses to put a GoPro on the side of Cooper's helmet and be looking down at his fucking feet like we all would. And he shows that. Like, as he enters the event horizon, have we ever seen anything in film like this? Have we ever seen a person fall into an event horizon, the space of which gravity and light cannot escape?
this is so good.
This is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know.
It's really it's so beautifully done, and then landing in the Tesseract.
The Tesseract.
Yeah, when they said that, I was like, that's right, that is a real term, but also... Marvel. Like,
what if Red Skull was just in there to guide him through it?
So much to unpack in this well, I will say this was given quote unquote the creepiest line in movie history. All of this in one little girl's bedroom. I was just like,
out of context.
Oof.
Yes, it's terrifying.
couldn't have wrote that any better.
Oh man, but I actually think that was the speaking through that scene again, because he's still talking. It almost seems like keeping himself sane until obviously he starts to hear Tarz's voice, which is like, thank God. It's like, oh my God, something else. I'm not fully alone yet, so that's helpful. But like when he's in there, that explanation of what it is that he's seeing, like another dimension in 3-dimensional space, just to represent it in a way that we can comprehend. That the whole concept is it's brilliant. Just to be able to, like, we don't know how to do this on film, but just to try is actually like something really special. I think that it's just such a beautiful scene.
Yeah, and like I thought there was the one thing I was a little confused about in that whole thing was, they kept saying. I thought it was a little weird earlier on. Again, the certainty with which Cooper says, a wormhole is not naturally occurring, someone had to leave it there. And I was like, that's quite a logical leap. Like, if we want to establish that as the canon of the universe within that particular movie, fine. It's just a weird way to deliver that message then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when he's in the black hole... he keeps going back and forth between, or him and Tars keep going back and forth between, they left it for us. No one left it for us. We figured it out ourselves. It was like, and then we're gonna, eventually we'll know what's going on, or we'll have the ability to do or whatever. And it's like, okay, they're closing it now, and I was like, well, which one is it? Is it they or is it you? I'm getting a little bit lost on that now.
Okay, so yeah, well, that whole thing was like it's the they that we've been discussing so far has been like it's the human race is at some point in the future. That's what it is. That's
what I settled on at the end of it
yeah.
all, but it's just the way that because he went, it felt like he flip-flopped like 3 times in like a 4-minute span.
Yeah, well, it was just I agree. It's a little bit clunky in that sense, but that's what it is, because it's too hard to understand, which I actually think is the point of it being actually clunky the way that it is. It's like saying saying it was us, back and forth. It's us at some point in the future, whether that's like the us as in he himself in the future, like having learned how to do this, but my only real issue actually comes from all of this stuff, and that's the whole like time manipulation thing, right? Like when you create like and time loops and all that stuff, like how did you get here the first time to actually go back to do the thing that you did to get you here now?
Well, I actually thought that this one did a pretty good job of all of that, because they're not going, when you create the unbreakable loop or whatever, it's like it's a recursive. It's the second time around this movie that comes up, right? Because she says it too, right? It is a recursive loop that we're running into. It's a recursive loop, so it closes itself off each time and it restarts. And that's the problem with so many time travel movies, is if you hold it as you can change the past, then the whole future changes, and does that leave you... Like that whole butterfly effect thing causes too many problems. But this, it's a constant recursive, like self-closing loop. So I'm okay with that sort of thing, because it makes, even though we're doing a thing that's beyond our ability to like verify exists, it fits with the way we perceive the model, that it wouldn't be able to break with if we had the technology to do it. You know what I mean?
Well,
like it's...
I don't know. How do you do it the first time?
Well, the whole point is it's a constant, persistent loop of you've gone on to a point where someone in the future has created the wormhole that you're then able to go through and do this thing with. That, like they said, at that point in the future, time
is not linear.
Its own, it's not.
Yeah, that's the only way I'm able to wrap my head around it. That
we will achieve a level of transcendence that allows for us to traverse time in the same way that we traverse the X, Y, and Z axis. That it's another dimension that, given the proper technology and understanding for, you can travel just as easily as you would go forward, left, right, or up. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I guess that. Yeah, if you take that, if you allow that to be the case, you accept that as the rule, then yeah, it works.
Yes,
to a varying degree. There's also the piece of like you can't fully grasp it because it is an out there theory, right? And like you can't fully understand it, but they're giving you enough to be like, this is what we're saying is the case.
Yes,
they're not leaving it as open ended, which is nice. God, that one other thing that's a little strange. Love the idea of him encoding the second hand of the watch. I think it's like really fun. Like like Tara's feeding him the data in Morse, and he's tapping the line. What I don't fully get is why the watch would keep doing that in that order.
So the way that I read it, which I thought was pretty cool, was they made a point of showing multiple shots of multiple days of multiple times of Murph's life, where he does say that line, which I will take credit. I put it in a creepy light because it did, out of context, sound that way. But the whole thing is, when he says all of this in one little girl's bedroom, it's, not creepy. It's not meant to be creepy, but it's saying that all of us are important, and this little girl's life and her connection with her father and the pain she went through losing him is just as important as anyone else's pain, and they understand that. And to take like the innocence of a child and take that box, we're in a tesseract. It's a box. the box that this little girl is in her room is where sometimes, at that age for all of us, we've all gone through the most raw emotions in a box in our room when we're at that age where that's how we feel. Like, you know what I mean? So when he's looking at her, they did a smart job of showing it almost seems like it's multiple days of her in her room doing things. So you don't know how long that goes.
Sure.
He actually does. There's multiple shots of him turning around and kind of using his thrusters to get to different portions in this tesseract. So it's almost as if every single corridor of this tesseract is a moment or a day or a year in Murph's life. Right. And so the only way, and I don't know if this is how they intended it, but the way that I justified it for myself in being so invested in this movie and just being down for whatever, I was like, you know what? He could have. I thought it was cool how him manipulating the hand when he was closest to it on the desk with the sand or whatever light or however he was doing it. He could also be at multiple moments in the tesseract that are continuing to move the hand no matter where she is.
Oh, okay,
and
so like going to like we are only seeing it from the perspective of the bedroom, but maybe going somewhere else, wherever she was looking at the watch. That's where he is doing. Yeah, okay, that actually.
Yeah, like he's moving it around on the watch hand. That's kind of how I took it.
All my gripes are gone. That fixes it for me. I'm okay. I can accept that. That works for me. I am now happy. My two questions are answered. One of the other cool things is the idea that we didn't really mention it earlier on, but they mentioned the first time that they're in, they go into the NASA and Coop's meeting all these people. They mentioned that the first anomalies that they started recognizing, these first gravitational anomalies, were 50 years ago. So I'm kind of curious, like there's more of an interesting story in there, right? Of like how much communication has been going on in this fashion, and what other like. This is not just an isolated incident. Like we've been using this method of communication for a long period of time. It seems like, which is kind of cool.
And are we also supposed to assume that Matthew McConaughey has a passing line that something interfered with his chute or his flight path in his ship? Did he have to start a chain of events that would lead him to where he is?
I don't know. But like they said, they did mention that was one of the anomalies that like that he already experienced one, and that was it. So yeah, like the point of like was that was that part of this whole grand plan of moving this chess piece into position to get this done?
Yeah, 100%.
Pretty crazy. Movie's tremendous. I've got nothing else to say other than this movie is just beautiful.
That leads us to the end of that. Really, I mean. Do we do an individual little wrap up here?
If you've got something, go for it.
Oh no, I mean I love the movie. I think it's stood up visually. I think it's some of the greatest writing that's been done in a Nolan film, as far as just like pen to paper, quote unquote. This character said this and said volumes within a sentence. Mm-hmm. And I would highly recommend it to anyone if you haven't already seen it. I also think that everyone jokes about the reconnaissance. I don't like to use that term, but I think he's great. I think he's great in this movie. And like I said, 9 out of 10. I'm in it, man. I'd watch this movie 4 more times. No problem.
I would like to revisit the movie again, but I want to give it like a substantial, like a year or something like that, and then come back to it and see, how it all feels once I know where everything's going, and I can really like get down to the nitty gritty of.
Watch it as a group, and you can pick it apart as we watch it. It'll be fun. We'll really dive deep. The only thing that I'll say in closing is that we didn't really talk about the final scenes of the movie, but they're not super. They're decent. They're not super compelling, but I actually think it's really great the way that it's done, because the crescendo of the Tesseract collapsing and then like where it goes after that is really just like the cool down of this ridiculous workout that you've done for 3, and you really just need it so that you can get up afterwards because
you want to talk about you want to talk about some of the things that you could have done, like we talked about the movie's a little long, like whatever. The stuff with Murph and Tom as adults ended up becoming like a drag kind of on what was going on. Like ultimately I liked where it went with her burning down like the crop or whatever to like get his attention to get them the hell out of there because it's what needed to be done. But the whole thing with why was Topher Grace in this movie?
just
Power
just
twin.
to yell
Literally just gonna say
at Murph's sister-in-law.
Yeah, and then
That was a very
he got,
Take him
awkward
out.
scene.
he
Take
got
him
his
out.
ass kicked by Casey Affleck, and like, and then all of
Who
a sudden,
doesn't?
like the two of them are like making out, like after everything like went well, and it's like when did we establish that they're that sort of friend? Like
After the Eureka scene, where she throws the papers, which was actually kind of fun.
yeah, well, sure, but then like, you know what I mean? Like there's just a lot going on with that whole situation. Like that could have been just a random ass no name actor. Why was Topher Grace?
If you need to
I don't
trim
even know that character's name.
If you need to trim any fat, I like Topher Grace, but if you were to cut his entire role and all the scenes around it, you probably wouldn't have lost anything.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you want to talk about where you could have like tightened this movie a little bit, like we talked a little bit about like the chase earlier on.
Yeah.
That whole thing, like the some of the very core part of the whole thing with Tom getting stuck and them needing to burn down the farm to get him out of there, like you could keep that, but there was a lot of like the whole point of setting up that she has to meet Topher Grace and that he has to come and like evaluate, and then we don't even know what the fuck is that they're like, what is wrong with the people that are in that farm? Like we don't even know what the hell that is. So if you're not going to tell us what's going on, then that's all a bit extraneous.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Well, we've rambled on at length about this phenomenal film. I could probably talk about it for a few more hours, but we're going to stop here. That's all for this week's episode of Flix in a Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixinasix@spoonchune.com or tweet us at @thespoonchune. Until next week, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
I'm Al Bielsi.
I'm Caleb Kroemer, and I'm not a robot, I promise.
Thanks for coming out.